Okay, let's try this again. Let's see if we get kicked out. If I get kicked out of this one, I'm just gonna do on YouTube. So I'll see if that works. This is a complete fucking nightmare. I don't understand it though. I'm gonna see if there's anything on Twitter. See if it's on Twitter now. Here. Don't see anything on the program. Anyone else? Um, okay. Giovanna, where have you been? I've been talking about you for over a week. Where the hell have you been? How are you? I hope you're well. I've missed you. Where have you been? Have you been on holiday or something? Because literally every stream we just showed a live stream. I was like, Giovanna's gonna be here. Giovanna's gonna be. Never saw you. So I'm glad you're fine. I'm glad you're well. You just shocked me. I've been waiting for probably a week and a half now to see you. Uh, you haven't been. And Stacey, been here every day. Giovanna, I've been here every day. Yesterday I wasn't online yesterday. Fair enough. But every other day I've been online. We did a live trial. We did a trial for the OnlyFans murder. So maybe notification button or something maybe not working, but I've been here every single day except for yesterday. That's weird. You and Stacey have been missing. I don't know where you've been. That makes sense. Maybe you didn't get notifications, maybe because literally every stream I was like, oh, I hope Giovanna and Stacey come, and you never come. And I'd come into this stream because my other stream crashed. Seems to be working now. So we're doing a live stream, as in live trial again. It's a murder one. You didn't get a notification. Yeah, but maybe you need to. Yeah, it's weird because I honestly, Giovanna, if you look at my page, I've been here every single day between 3 my time, so that's 10 a.m. your time. So I'm going to be here tomorrow as well at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Um, Saturday, Sunday, not, and then Monday, all of next week, I'm going to be online as well. Um, this is a live trial we're doing. right now. My I've been streaming for 4 hours today, but it crashed, so I started a new one. Um, so this one, and then we're doing an old stream. Then we're doing an Aaron and Anders stream after that. Then, which I know you don't like old streams. I know. Um, let me just get this. I need to get this trial open. Oh, well, that explains where you've been. Maybe don't get notifications. But I've been every day, except for yesterday. Every day, all last week and this week, and every stream. Where's Giovanna? Where's Stacey? I've not seen either one of you. Ah, that's odd, isn't it? Right, let me get a law and crime open. So this is about a lawyer that murdered his mother, or accused of murdering his mother. Um, right, I need to tweet this out as well now. Then I will. Sorry, sorry, Giovanna. I've got to do a couple of bits here now. StreamYard again. Because I've got my Rumble account, I have to do that one as well. Right, destination. Rumble. That was that was probably my favorite case so far. Yeah, it lasted for about 5 days, 6 days in the end. Right, hang on then. I need to 45. That's fine. Edit. I need to get Rumble in. Okay, no, I need to um, end live stream. Set up a new live stream. Use templates. Richard. A1. Part 2. Oh, done. Um, right now. Next. It crashed, so I'm setting up the stream again. I need to tweet it out and stuff, because it kept crashing. It crashed about 20 times, so I think people got fed up now and left. But I've got to set it up and tweet about it to try and get some people back in. But we won't get many now because they've joined other streams, unfortunately. StreamYard. Okay, that should be fine now. I just need to get a link now. I'll start this after lunch. Right. Right, okay, so that's that there. Rumble, are you now up to date? Oh jeez, I don't know the fuck's going on here anymore. Um, Hang on then. Get virtual background as well. Edit. Oes bach, be sy'n bob ar e? Spider Girls are the way. I just literally don't know what to do now. Um, it won't play on Rumble for whatever reason. Why would it play on Rumble then? not much I can do about it, is there? But this is highly annoying. Waiting on stream, this stream. Happy days. Spider Girl. Well, Giovanna has been in. I think she's gone now. But Giovanna hasn't been here for a week and a half. And me wondering where she is. She's never got any notifications to say I was online. Nightmare. Well, I can't figure out how I stream Rumble now. Oh, fuck's sakes. Why? Delilah. Like, I don't get it. It's not. It's not even like, I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. I can't. So Rumble people, Rumble, where I get sometimes 80 odd people, the one place I should get to work, can't get it to work. Oh, nightmare. Well, sorry, Rumble. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. And let me just go back in broadcast again, just in case there is something I haven't done. Oh shit, have a quick look. Stream. Sorry, I will press play now. It's just edit. Yes. Maybe because I pressed record before I was supposed to. I don't know. Figure it out. Right. I got it. I've got it all figured out. Right. I'm going to start this just after lunch because you missed everything, Misty, because you're on bloody TikTok. So it's only you that came back. There was a few others that were there at the time. Every time I'd build up, start to get some numbers on YouTube, I'd crash. I crashed about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. Right, let's see if we can hear this now then. Right, just double check in. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine, that's on. So Spider Girl, we're about to start. Let's just check if the audio is going to be fine now then. Present, share screen, share. There we are. Right, let's have a look. The jury to come in now. I've watched this for about 20 minutes, but let's watch it again. Because this is a second witness. I don't remember this one's name, so. Giovanna, my fingers too walking. Giovanna, every day now you need to come in. I'm going to be here 10 o'clock Eastern every day showing this trial. So if you don't get a notification, come and check me out because me and Spider Girl will be here. Spider Girl's in here. We crashed so many times.
Miss Medicosa, you understand you're still under oath, ma'am.
Everyone's disappeared. No one's coming back anymore. Right, let me know how the old call is.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
And when you and I were never met personally, we have chatted on a couple occasions, correct?
We have.
Okay. And Dr. Medicosa, let me draw your attention.
Oh, that's bad for me. So let me just check this.
Back to January 2019. Let's talk about January 2019. Let's start there and then we'll go backwards and forwards, okay? Now, back in January 2019, basically,
True.
Richard's case was ongoing and he was about to enter a plea, correct? Is that a yes?
You mean right before his bench
Before-
trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. And back in January 2019 and 2018, this fraud case up in Cobb County, it was a big deal, correct?
Right.
And it was a big deal because especially not only was it that it involved 34 counts, tens of victims, but it was in the county which you and Richard lived at the time, correct?
Correct.
And because I believe at the time you and Richard were living in Smyrna.
Right.
Okay. And it was a big deal because also involved elderly people, correct?
Right.
And involved the loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct?
Right.
And at this time, tensions were kind of high up there in the area where you and Richard were living, correct?
Correct.
And I think some people even called it sort of like a lynch mob after your husband, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And leading up to him entering the plea, even though you and Richard weren't together, you were concerned and a bit nervous about the whole situation.
I wasn't nervous about the situation. I was mortified that the whole world knew what I had been through. I wasn't scared. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking me.
But you were concerned, correct? You were concerned about the world and what they were thinking.
Yes.
And then you were maybe a little concerned that maybe somebody was, or some person or someone was following you.
No, never.
And didn't someone come up to your job at some point in time regarding the case?
Nobody came up to my job. When Richard was first arrested, one of the victims called and told my boss what he had done. I was never worried about being followed or anything like that.
It didn't bother you that people were calling your job to talk about your husband?
It bothered me because I was embarrassed that the whole world knew what my husband had done. Rich and I were very prominently known in the community, so that's why it bothered me. I was never scared. I was mortified.
Okay. And then, of course, I know on one occasion, you were at least somewhat concerned because you did get a flyer, a cartoon in your mailbox, correct?
I remember the cartoons in my mailbox.
Okay. And did you discuss those with Richard?
Yes.
Did you discuss those with Shirley?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did Shirley get the same flyer?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, this is eliciting hearsay.
It's a yes or no. I'm not asking what Shirley may have said.
Okay.
And to your knowledge, did Shirley get that same flyer?
Yes, the flyers were put in her mailbox as well.
Okay.
Tweet it out now.
I'm sure it was marked as defendant exhibit number 1.
Yeah, I know, Gio. I know.
Yes.
I thought she was the witness to start off with. But did you know that the witness was the one behind?
Yes.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the flyer that you received in your mailbox? That you understand Ms. Merritt also received?
You got a 1.25.
Well, I did not see the ones that Shirley received.
Fair enough. That one
This is the one that was in my mailbox.
And and the one you discussed with Shirley.
Yes.
Or this time, move the increased offensive number 1.
Any objection? Can I look at it for one moment, please? Oh, it's just.
No subtitles.
That video.
Judgment published.
Yes.
And this is a flyer, a copy flyer which you received in your mailbox. And you recall when it was in relationship to the day in which Richard was sentenced?
I don't remember what day it was. It's been quite a while, but I do recall it was right before his bench trial.
What's
if I'm
better
correct in
now?
remembering that.
Joanna.
Like said,
I
that
miss you,
trial,
Joanna.
Was it a trial, or was it actually the day in which there was a long sentencing hearing?
The day of the sentencing hearing. I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if I'm saying the right.
That's fair enough. You're not-
The day that he was sentenced. This was right before the day he was sentenced.
Because apparently, it looks like here at the top, tuned in January 18, 2019 for another edition of Georgia Cobb County Justice, titled Will, Illinois Vixen. Who's Illinois? Never had who Illinois is.
That was the judge.
And then it's mentioned here, Judge, you never know I'm a repeat offender, and I violated my bond twice. I'm a bad boy. I know you'll go easy on me. And that was some of the language on the flyer.
That's what I'm reading
I
on the
don't remember
flyer.
what it used to be like.
Then, of course, we have a comment here. Ask DA Margaret, hey, who cares about the elderly? We take care of our own. How do I look with a hairpiece? I'm such a tool.
No subtitles though, so.
Yes.
And there appears to be some comment here about DA Reynolds and also about the judge in the case.
That's what I'm reading.
Yes. And that's what you see. Now, did that cause you, again, did it cause you any concern?
I was not happy about it
Mhm.
because I didn't want the victims to confront me because I felt so bad that they thought I was an accomplice. I was upset that they knew where I lived because I was afraid they were going to try to talk to me and not accept my apologies for him. I was never afraid of them. I just thought, oh, they know where I live. Are they going to come talk to me? Just like Inside Edition was in my front yard and they were trying to talk to me. I didn't want to be involved in any way. So that's why I was unhappy that the flyers were in my mailbox. I was not afraid. In any
Now-
way.
Oh, excuse me, didn't mean to interrupt. But that day, isn't it true that you took your son out of school that day?
I don't remember. If I did take him out of school that day, it was probably because everyone at his school was talking to him about it and he was emotionally traumatized.
Fair enough. And also, isn't it true that you contacted Cobb County Police regarding what was going on?
I
do
don't
like
remember
someone-
exactly if I told the police.
And what about the Cobb County DA's office? You recall reaching out to them?
I had been in touch with one of the investigators at the Cobb County DA's office,
And,
so I'm sure I talked to her.
and you were in touch with her because you plan to offer evidence against Richard or because of your own concerns about being involved in any way?
I was in touch with her all along because I tried to aid in his conviction. So I gave her his computer, some materials that were in the storage space of our house. I talked to her and gave her information about Richard to help with his conviction. I never talked to her because I was afraid in any way for myself or my family.
And then as you I believe you already told us,
No.
on the day in which Richard earned his plea, sounds like you weren't there for most of the hearing, correct?
But yeah, I
Right.
agree.
You were there when he did, though, finally entered plea guilty and was sentenced to, I believe, said 30 to 15, correct?
Right.
Okay. And you weren't there, but of course that day Shirley was there.
No, Shirley was not there.
She wasn't there at sentencing. You sure?
I don't remember. We're coming up on 4.5 years. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't remember if she was sitting in the courtroom that day. I don't remember.
Everything for this day.
And so let's talk about Shirley for a minute. As you mentioned, Shirley was a wonderful grandmother.
Yes.
As you said, Shirley cared about her grandkids immensely.
Yes.
And Shirley cared about Richard immensely also.
He was her son. She did.
Okay.
She obviously cared about him. She was the only one that stuck by him.
Correct. Because as you told us, you and Richard met, I believe, around 94, correct?
Right.
When y'all were UGA, and then y'all got married around about 99, correct?
Right.
So we're talking 20 years in which you and Richard were together, 20 years in which Shirley was a part of not just Richard's life, but your life.
Right.
And during those 20 years, as you mentioned, Shirley gave not just to her grandkids, but she gave a lot to her son.
Yes,
And oftentimes, as a good mother, she helped take care of him when basically he couldn't take care of himself.
right.
And as you said, when you guys were in school, I guess you were in school, he wasn't a lawyer yet, and it's tough, basically, to rising professionals, and she gave money to you.
Right.
And as you mentioned, when Richard was trying to get on his feet, she gave money to help support his practice, right?
She did a lot to help him, and they fought a lot in spite of that.
And as you mentioned, she gave a lot, but it sounds like there was I guess, sort of a underlying understanding that she wasn't really looking for stuff in return. Correct?
I don't think she expected him to pay her back.
Correct. So, but then you mentioned that there were times, the legal word was they could be contentious.
Yes,
Now, is it fair to say, surely she was a kind and gracious lady, but she was also a strong lady?
she was a firecracker.
Good way of putting it. And she was strong-willed.
Yes,
And your husband, he was kind of strong-willed also.
kind of.
And the two of them, right, you said they could butt heads
Yes, they butted heads a lot
about simple stuff.
about a lot of things. Oh, so many things.
Okay. However, though they would argue, there never was any fights or any physical violence between either one of them, was there?
There was never anything physical, no.
Okay. And regardless of your feelings about Richard, he did not have a reputation for being a violent man, did he?
No, but he had a very, very scary temper.
But as you said, he did not have a reputation for physical violence, correct?
He was physically violent with me once.
Tell us about
I
it.
don't believe it.
What year was that?
I don't remember what year it was.
Here we go.
It
Do not
was
believe it. I hate it.
somewhere towards the end of our marriage, the last couple of years. I do
Bullshit.
recall. But we had an argument and we were in our bedroom and he pushed me to the ground and I hit my head on the bed.
And actually, the two of you pushed each other.
No, he pushed me and I hit my head. He pushed me down. I didn't do anything.
And did you call police?
No,
Did you make a report?
no, because I was scared of what he would do if I reported it.
Did you file for divorce?
Not at that time.
Because you told us days after he gets arrested for fraud, within 5 days, you filed for divorce, correct?
Because of what he did to me and to all those people that I found out about.
Because pretty much he defrauded them, correct? And because of his actions, he took your life away,
He ruined our lives.
correct?
And that's why I divorced him.
Because as you mentioned to us, you said that you guys lived life as, I guess, during those 18 or so good years that you lived, I think your term was jet setters, correct?
We were a doctor and a lawyer. We were doing fun things. Absolutely.
Doctor and lawyer traveling, correct?
Yes.
Having parties,
Yes.
correct? Basically, you had the kids. I understand Jack was in football, correct? Sometime
Jack was in a lot of sports.
he was in baseball, correct?
Right.
He was in fishing.
Yes.
He was doing golf.
Yes.
And doing a lot of that, his dad, Richard, was right there, correct?
He was there for those activities.
And then even with Mia, with her disability, often he would take her on walks, correct?
He didn't do things with Mia as often.
Didn't he go swimming with her?
We would go to the pool sometimes and go swimming. He never assisted in her custodial care that she required as a disabled person. I did all of that by myself, and he never came with me to her doctor appointments, except for the one on the day of the murder. I did much of Mia's care by myself. We went out to dinner. We did things as a family before the very end when his behavior changed, when he started drinking very heavily and showing us the temper that was very scary.
Now, and you mentioned that, and I haven't seen a single report where you mentioned that was an issue in your relationship, correct?
I didn't talk about it because it was very scary. It happened probably in the couple of months before he was arrested. And he told me later he knew he was about to be arrested because he knew he was going to get caught. And that was when he started coming home very, very drunk and angry. His temper scared us very badly. There was one night where Jack and I were looking for somewhere to run and hide, but Mia was upstairs sleeping and we couldn't wake her up and we didn't want to leave her.
Now, that is a good story. You've never mentioned that in any of the statements you made to the DA, correct?
I told the DA that he was angry and had a drinking problem.
You never mentioned that to the Cobb County DA, correct?
I told them that he had a drinking problem.
You never mentioned that to the judge in Cobb County, correct?
To the judge in Cobb County? No, I don't recall talking to the judge in Cobb County.
You never mentioned to the Cobb County Police when they came and spoke with you after the incident, correct?
That he would drank a lot and had a temper?
Yes, you never mentioned any of that to any of those persons up until you knew you would be called as a witness in this case, correct?
I never mentioned it to anybody because it was so scary. And honestly, I blocked a lot of it out because I was so traumatized by everything that he had put us through. And I was talking to Jack recently, and he reminded me of some of those events.
Bollocks.
So now you have, I guess, a recent recollection, correct?
I've been working on it intensely in therapy, and a lot of the trauma that I've been through has surfaced later as I've dealt with the years
As a court,
of trauma that he put me through.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Nichols. Back during the good days, pre-2018, you and your husband went to many events, correct?
Correct.
And during those times, during those many events, how would Richard introduce you?
What do you mean?
As his wife, as his
Yes.
girlfriend, as Dr. Mendoza? How would he introduce you?
Wife.
As his wife, correct?
Yes, I was his wife. He introduced me as his wife.
And he would introduce you as being Dr. Mendoza, correct?
Well, he would never call me, this is my wife, Dr. Minicozy. He would
He
say,
would tell
this is
everybody
my
you were
wife,
doctor.
Janine. Yeah, he would tell people I was a
He
doctor.
would tell everybody doctor. And likewise, when you met people and you introduced him to Richard, he would say, this is my husband, Richard, correct?
Yes.
And you would say, this is my husband, Richard. He's an attorney, correct?
If people ask what he did for a living, sure.
Because like today, you mentioned to Ms. Pot here that when he became a lawyer after failing the bar 2 times.
3 times.
Right. Is that something you used to mention about your husband before all this?
No, I didn't, but I mentioned it because Ms. Pot asked me what Shirley had done to help us and when she had given us money. And so I said that there was a while that it took him to pass the bar where we needed financial help, and Shirley was the one to help us. That is the only reason I said it took him a while to pass the bar.
And of course, one of the reasons is, let's be honest, at this point in time, you hate Richard.
Of course.
Now, let's talk about that Thursday before the incident. You were telling us that you met up with Richard, and you and Jack and Mia met up with Richard that Thursday before, correct?
That night, we met in the Starbucks parking lot by my house so he could say goodbye to the kids.
Well, also that night, isn't that the night in which Richard and Jack went to Longhorns for dinner?
I believe they did, yeah.
Okay. And then you and Mia met up with Jack and Richard and had some Starbucks.
Right.
And he said goodbyes.
We just met in the parking lot for him to return Jack to me, and then they said goodbye for the last time. Yes, that is what happened.
And then that Friday, you mentioned to us how Richard had met y'all at the doctor's appointment, correct?
Right,
And you were aware that at that time, Richard was on that ankle monitor, correct?
right.
And I'm not sure, were you aware that he had an 8 a.m. curfew where he couldn't even leave the house before 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I knew that, if I remember correctly.
So Richard's living in Stone Mountain with his mother. He can't leave the house till 8, and the appointment's up in Sandy Springs, correct?
Right,
And being a longtime resident of Atlanta, you know that's not a great commute on a Friday morning, correct?
right.
Okay. Because you mentioned that Richard was late. And that's not surprising that somebody would be late traveling that distance, right?
We're all late when we try to leave at rush hour to go places.
Okay, agreed.
I didn't think that was weird.
You didn't think it was weird. So you didn't think it was weird that Richard showed up late to the appointment up there in Sandy Springs, right?
The fact that he was late is not what was weird about that appointment.
Right. Now you said Richard seemed different, correct?
Yes,
And of course, you know that's the day that Richard's supposed to be able to turn himself into jail and serve prison time, right?
right.
And now you said he was different and he wasn't very talkative, correct?
Right.
But at the conclusion of that appointment, isn't Richard the one that took Mia to the car?
That is not true. At the conclusion of that appointment, the doctor said, Janine, let me walk you to your car, because he didn't like the way Richard's aura was and his behavior. So me as doctor walked me to my car out through the employee entrance and stood with me until we safely got in the car and drove away. Richard did not walk me to my car. The doctor did not allow it.
You say Richard wasn't even there at that point in time.
He went to wherever he had parked and left.
Okay.
I went alone with the doctor who insisted on escorting me to my car.
And of course, at that time, you didn't call police, correct?
No,
You didn't make any type of report of him acting strange or being scary, correct?
no, I knew he was about to go to prison and not be my problem.
Now, it sounded like you thought that maybe Shirley had posted Richard's bond by putting up the house, correct?
Yes.
And as you said, you're not a lawyer, correct?
No, I'm not a lawyer.
And you weren't involved in that transaction at all, correct?
No.
And of course, it's not surprising you that actually he posted bond through a bond company, correct?
Right.
Because of course, as you said, Shirley helped facilitate him getting out of jail.
She's the one who got him out of jail. I don't understand everything about how bonding works and how she came up with the money, but I know that Shirley is the one who got him out of jail, and she is the reason that he was bonded out.
Correct. And you may tell us about that Friday. That evening, you said Richard's prior lawyer, Mr. Willingham, contacted you because Richard hadn't turned himself in.
He
Correct.
called me at work half an hour after Richard was supposed to have reported to see if I had heard from him, and I said no.
And of course, you hadn't heard from Richard. And at that point in time, I believe you told us that you did not reach out to Mike that night. You spoke to Mike the next day, correct?
I believe so.
Yes, she's desperate to have him in jail.
We were very upset and concerned because Jack was not with us and Richard was missing. So I actually don't remember if I talked to Mike Friday night or Saturday morning. Like I said, we're coming up on 4.5 years, and there are some details of that day that I don't remember exactly. And it was all very stressful and traumatic. So I'm just
She
not
doesn't
entirely
remember
sure about
key
some of those
details.
details.
What he
Okay.
said, sir.
Now let's go back to like 2018.
I'm sure
Richard
he's
gets
a dick.
arrested and Shirley posts his bond, correct?
Just
It
tell the
took a
truth,
few
love.
months, if I recall.
She gets him out on bond. He's on the ankle monitor. And during this time, the divorce is in progress, right? And during this time, you and Richard, I guess somewhat begrudgingly, are corresponding on a regular basis, correct?
Out of necessity so that we could get divorced.
Well, so you get divorced also so he could see the kids, right?
I did let him see the kids. For quite some time, my son refused to see him. At first, Jack wouldn't see his father because he was too upset.
But at some point in time, as you said, you facilitated Richard.
You're having a fucking laugh right now.
Being able to see the kids weekly, bi-weekly on a regular basis, correct?
I allowed that, absolutely.
Because at that time, you didn't have concerns about Mia's or Jack's well-being, correct?
At that time, I didn't know he was capable of murder, but at the time of his arrest in January 18, I didn't know he was capable of hurting elderly people. There was a lot I didn't know about him.
Just answer the question.
Now you say all that because obviously, as you've already told us, you hate Richard, but you don't know what happened, correct?
I don't know what happened when.
You don't know what happened with the criminal case in Cobb County, and you don't know what happened that day in Stone Mountain,
The day of the murder?
correct? Because you weren't there, right?
No, I was not there during the time that she was supposed that she was murdered.
Nothing further.
Can you redirect? All right, so Janine, Mr. Queen described a lynch mob. Can you describe that a little bit further?
They were not a physical lynch mob. They bonded together and they were very, very upset and angry
What
and
are you doing?
hurt.
Yeah, true.
He was never afraid of them. He very often would say, I'm just trying to define.
Hold on. What's the basis of your objection? Hold on, Mr. Queen. Start over with the basis of your objection, because Ms. Duhan can only take down one of us talking at a time, so I'm trying to make sure we have an accurate record.
Sure, Judge. At this point in time now, the answer is non-responsive to the question, and also now she's speculating on his friend line.
Ms. Pike,
Your
ask
Honor.
a more specific question.
Okay,
I was confused about what you meant by lynch mob.
okay. Well, I'm as well, and that's why I'm asking that question. Mr. Queen used that term. Is that a term that you would use?
No,
How would you describe the victims of the defendant from the Cobb County case?
hurt and angry and upset and betrayed.
And can you say what their average age was?
They were older people.
Okay. And were they in general business owners or, were these, can you go further and elaborate who these folks were?
They were ordinary people who needed help. I don't know what they did for a living, but they were people that trusted him, that needed his help, that
he heard.
Like the jury, blah, blah.
Did you ever receive any threats after the defendant was charged in Cobb County?
I was never threatened by anybody.
Are you aware of any threats that the defendant received?
No,
Okay. And are you aware of any threats that Shirley Merritt or any other family member received?
no, nobody was threatened.
Okay. And did anyone ever stalk you to your base? Are you aware of ever being stalked?
No, I wasn't stalked to my knowledge, and I wasn't worried about it either.
Did you ever believe that you were being followed?
No,
And did the defendant ever mention to you that he felt that he was being followed?
no,
Did he ever express any fear of these individuals that he had stolen money from?
no. He talked about them and said things about them, but fear was never an emotion that he conveyed.
What did he say?
He said a lot of them were crazy.
Okay.
And
And the cartoon, this cartoon that the defense has presented as Defense Exhibit 1. Do you consider any of this to be a threat?
no,
What do you consider it to be?
I consider it to be the victims lampooning the whole situation.
Okay. All right. You mentioned that the defendant had a scary temper. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Rage. When he was drunk, he would go into a rage,
And how would he act?
just screaming, cornering me, yelling, scaring the children.
And you said that was when he was drinking. Did he always drink?
He always drank, and he always drank a lot. We used to drink together during the days when we partied. I myself am in recovery, and I've been sober for a long time. Towards the end, and by the end I mean the time where he admitted he knew he was about to be arrested, he was driving home so drunk that he couldn't get out of his car once he got into the garage. We would find him lying on the floor outside. He was drinking to that extent. On the nights that he drank that much and he was able to come inside, he would be in a rage, screaming at us, and honestly just screaming about anything and everything.
And how did he treat his mother?
I would call him ungrateful to her for all the things that she had done for him.
What do you mean?
He fought with her all the time and was annoyed by her all the time and didn't act like he appreciated all the things that she did for him. She's the only one that stuck by him after his arrest.
And did you ever witness him yelling at her or speaking in a demeaning way toward her?
All the time.
What kinds of things would he say?
He would just tell her to butt out of his life and this isn't your business. And there's a lot of their interaction I wasn't witness to, but I was aware every time he was mad at her, and he was mad at her a lot.
How did you learn of the Cobb County charges?
When the day that he was arrested on January 31st of 2018, I got a call from David Willingham, who's the lawyer that he hired, to let me know your husband's been arrested and this is why, and this is what happened.
Did you ever withhold either of the children from the defendant?
No.
One additional question. What kind of vehicle did Shirley drive?
She drove the smaller Lexus SUV. It was okay.
No further questions.
Anything further, Ms. Witness?
Just pretty Judge. Over 20 years, you knew Shirley Merritt, correct?
Yes.
And you knew Shirley because of your husband Richard, correct?
Yes.
And you just characterized it. Richard he treated her as if he was ungrateful, correct?
Yes.
But I guess at the same time, likewise, I guess, didn't you treat her as if you were ungrateful also?
Didn't I treat her as if I were ungrateful of her help?
Because you benefit from all this help, correct?
I did benefit from all this help, but I always thanked her. I didn't fight with her the way that he did.
And then you were telling us that period right before Richard gets arrested, you said that his drinking had accelerated, correct?
Yes.
Now, You're aware that as a condition of his bond, he was on a monitor, correct?
Correct.
And also condition of bond that he had a curfew, correct?
Right.
And as condition of bond that pretty much he wasn't allowed to drink alcohol, correct?
Right.
And then so during this time, that year, between his arrest and his sentencing, you see him on a regular basis, correct?
I do.
Because of the kids.
Right.
In that year, you see him, there's no interaction that caused you to say, no, you can't see my kids anymore, correct?
I never prevented him from seeing the children. I didn't want to hurt my children by.
It's not the question.
During that year, between 2018 up until he pled guilty in 2019, he exhibited no actions that made you say, hey, you can't be around the kids anymore, correct?
Right.
Winfrey.
Good
Anyone
question.
speak excuse?
Yes.
Mr. Queen? Thank you.
Medical, you're right. You just over-exaggerated.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of truth there, right?
All right,
But
next
she
witness.
exaggerated so much, I think.
Nelson.
Or to me, it seemed like she was just exaggerating so much. And how quick she was to answer certain questions, and he beat her up where she hasn't told anybody that. And I know that happens, but come on, how do you not remember that? Or like she said, I didn't like her, and I'm with you. We just need the evidence and everything we've heard. Obviously, oh, she's nice. Oh yeah, the attorney here is lovely. It's not looking good for him. But that's complete bullshit. Hearsay. I don't care about any of that. Waste of time.
Yes, sir. Ashley Nelson. It's ASHLEIGHNELSON.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Where do you work now?
Now I work
Yes.
at the DeKalb County Medical Examiner's Office.
All right. How long have you worked there?
2.5 years.
What are your duties
Yes.
at the medical examiner's office?
I investigate death scenes.
That's why it was a really good question at the end
I
from
take
him.
hospital calls, funeral
He
homes.
said
we work real
all
close
these
with.
things.
Sometimes I'll assist with
You
autopsies.
still let him
Okay.
have a
And
choice.
previously, before you worked there, where did you work?
DeKalb County Police Department.
Okay. And how long did you work there?
About 3.5 years.
What were your duties with the DeKalb County Police Department?
Answering calls for service, appearances in court, obtaining warrants, that kind of thing.
Okay. In February of 2019, what were your duties then?
Answering calls for service, 911 calls, same, going to court, kind of thing.
Were you what's known as a patrol officer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you working on February 1st of 2019?
Yes, sir.
That afternoon, were you on duty?
Yes, sir.
What were your duties that day?
I was a patrol officer. I was answering calls for service. I was working what's known as the 540s in Tucker Precinct, which includes smoke rise.
Okay. And what is a CAD?
The CAD is the program that we use for our 911 calls. It shows up on our computers in our cars, and it displays the notes and call times and everything.
Okay. And Your Honor, at this time, the state would tender in States 8, which is the CAD and the business record certification for the 911 calls from February 1st, 2019 and February 2nd, 2019.
Any objection? Admitted.
Investigator, what is a welfare check?
Welfare check is where we go to a residence or a business and we check on loved ones or even property we've checked on before.
Okay.
We're back to this now. Come on. And Joanna, if you're still here, I still get confused which one's the witness. Because our stenographer is like, I keep looking at her going, are you going to say something then? And she's talking. I'm like, but her mouth's not moving. Then I remember there was a woman behind. Very odd. I don't like it either. It's very good. Well, Giovanna, right? Week and a half. I think I told you. Week and a half she hasn't been here. because she never got any notifications that I was live. And she did get a notification for this, and all of a sudden she popped in straight away. Madness.
Sorry, Judge. Commissioner Nelson, I'm showing you what's been marked State's Exhibit A. Sorry, evidence. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir. This is a copy of the CAD call.
Okay. And was there a 911 call made on February 1st of 2019?
Yes, sir.
What was the call for?
It was a welfare check.
Okay. What time was the call made?
The initial call came in at 16 hours, 5:16 p.m.
Okay. And at what time did you respond to the resident?
I was assigned the call at 5:22 p.m.,
And what time did you get there?
5:39 p.m.
And can you just do the address of the welfare check?
1590 Planters Row.
When you got to the residence, what did you do?
When I first arrived, I walked up to the front door, rang the doorbell, knocked on the door.
Was the door locked?
Yes, sir.
And at this point, showing you what's marked State's Exhibit 5, do you recognize what this is?
Yes, sir.
What is this?
That is Miss Merritt's residence.
Is that address in DeKalb County?
Yes, sir.
Now, so you went to the front door first?
Yes, sir.
Did anybody come to the front door?
No, sir.
What did you do after that?
After nobody came to the front door, I walked around the house to check for any forced entry, open doors, or open windows.
And did you come across any doors that were open?
No, sir.
Did you check and see if all the doors were locked?
Yes, sir.
Nice house, though.
Did it appear as though any windows had been broken?
No, sir.
Mr. Nelson, show you what's marked State's Exhibit 11, State's Exhibit 78. You recognize those?
Yes, sir.
What are those photos of?
The back of the residence.
Okay. And are they fair and accurate? 11 and 78.
Any objection? Admitted.
All right, so we're looking at State 5 here. I'm showing you what's been marked State's Exhibit 6, which is already in evidence. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir.
What is this here?
That was one of the back doors on the back of the residence.
Did you check this door?
Yes, sir.
Was it locked?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 11, what is this here?
Another back door on the back of the residence. The residence.
Do you see a door there?
Yes, sir.
Was the door locked?
Yes, sir.
And State's Exhibit 78, what is this here?
Two more back doors on the
Okay.
back.
And did you check those doors as well?
Yes, sir.
And they were locked?
Yes, sir.
Now, other than checking the doors, did you do anything else?
After I checked the residence and everything was secure, I called my supervisor
Okay.
and had him come out to double check the house with me.
Okay. Did you also look into the house?
Yes, sir.
What did you see inside?
Normal living conditions. There wasn't anything that appeared to really be out of place. And the first door that you showed me, I did see a purse.
You saw a
Yes, sir.
purse?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was the purse?
It was sitting on a table kind of like this one. It looked like it was like a laundry room type area.
Let's go back to the CAD real quick. So, looking at the CAD, you got there at what time?
5:39.
Okay. And is that in the afternoon?
Yes, sir.
What time did your supervisor get there?
7:27 p.m.
Now, did you and your supervisor only check on the house, or did you look down the street, anything like that?
I spoke to some neighbors while I was waiting for my supervisor to arrive.
Okay. Was there any evidence that you had uncovered that there was any disturbance that had happened?
Not that I saw. No.
Looking at the CAD here, how long were you on scene at the house?
Couple hours. I arrived at 5:39 p.m. My supervisor at 7:27 p.m. And it looks like we completed the call at 8:12 p.m.
Now, if you had, what would you have had to have seen inside to have gone into the house?
We would have had to have heard something, or somebody in there calling out for help would have been something. If I would have saw blood, if the house would have been in like a disarray, like it looked like there was a fight or something that happened prior to our arrival.
Okay. But did you see that?
No, sir.
Now, at some point, You left.
Yes, sir.
Was there a call made the next day? Looking at that,
Yes, sir, February 2nd,
what time was the call made that day?
9:28 a.m.
And did officers respond that day as well?
Yes, sir.
And according to the CAD, what time did the officers get on scene?
The first officer arrived at 9:31 a.m. Or excuse me, he arrived at 9:43 a.m. I'm sorry. He showed that.
Now, you mentioned the doors. What about the garage door?
The garage door was closed
It was
when
closed.
I arrived. Yes,
You said you spoke with the neighbors.
yes, sir.
Based on your discussions with the neighbors, did it appear as though that they had heard a disturbance?
They hadn't heard anything, no.
And did you see any vehicles in the driveway?
There was one car.
You know what kind of car it was?
I don't recall what kind of car it was. It was dark in color. I remember that.
Dark in color.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Cross.
The briefing officer?
Yes.
What shift were you working on the first?
Evening watch. It's 2:30. Yes, sir. 2:30.
You left out.
Sorry. 2:30 p.m. to 1200 hours, 12 midnight.
2:30 midnight. And the next day, what shift were you working? Were you working the next day?
Yes, I worked the next day. It was the same shift, 2:30 to midnight. Yes, sir.
So the next day, were you involved in this case call?
On the next day when she was found, I
On the
was
second.
on the second. No, sir.
You know, officer may have been on the scene. At that point in time, by the time you got out to on duty, this was no longer a case involving, I guess, regular patrol officers.
It appears on the second they completed the call at 3:44 p.m., which would have been after my shift started.
But you wouldn't call to the scene because by that time, other officers would have handled it.
Correct. Not on the second.
And did you do a report to the judge on this case?
No, sir. I did not do a report.
And just for jury verification, why did that report?
Typically on welfare checks, we didn't complete reports. We would add notes to the call, which is what we did that night. Officers have the ability to add their own call notes to the CAD from their cars, and that's what we did that night.
Did you note the car in the cab?
Yeah, quiet.
It appears that I ran the tag number for the car that was in the vehicle, but it doesn't give what kind of car, the make or model of the vehicle is.
But as you know, you ran the tag, but you didn't make note as to whether, I guess, the car was a particular make or model, correct?
Correct.
And I'm assuming you ran the tag, and if the car was stolen, then you would have known that, correct?
Correct.
If the car had been something which had been reported missing or anything, you would have known that.
Yes, sir.
If there was like a photo or people look up this vehicle, you would know that.
Yes, sir.
Now let's go back to me. You went around the curves of your house, and you said the doors were supposed to be locked.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you looked through a window, and you noticed a purse
Yes, sir.
sitting on a table.
Yes, sir.
But there was nothing that seemed, I guess, extraordinary about that purse.
Correct.
It appears as though it was like the person was laying on this, like, right through the person, like that.
Correct.
The garage, you mentioned the garage door was closed. Could you see into the garage in deep fashion?
Yes, I could.
And what did you see inside the garage? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Briefly, Judge. Commissioner Nelson, I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit. I'm sorry. Show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 9. Do you recognize this here?
Yes, sir.
Where's that photo of?
The house and the vehicle to the left.
Okay. And is this a fair and accurate depiction of what the driveway looked like with the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I would enter in State's 9.
Any objection?
I guess I'd like a little more foundation as to the vehicle. Yeah, I'm going to.
What foundation?
A little more clarity as to the, because obviously the photo is not taking the time that she was there. Well, I got that. So I think,
Can you see the
Mr.
tag?
James, don't know.
Is this a fair and accurate depiction of what the driveway looked like when you got there on February 1st, 2019?
Yes, sir.
Any objection?
Same question, Mark. Yeah, I'm driving. I think we should take a note, maybe people in driving.
Your Honor, she described the driveway, and this is what the driveway looked like when she got there on February 1st, 2019. Foundation was laid for this photo to come in.
Mr. Queen, I don't know what other foundation is necessary. She's identified the photo. She says it's a fair and accurate representation of what it looked like when she arrived at the scene. She's already testified there was a vehicle in the driveway. She just doesn't recall what kind of vehicle.
I guess the only question is that the vehicle that she saw in the driveway?
That's not what he asked her. He just asked her, is that a fair and accurate representation of what it looked like when she arrived? She said, yes, that's all, that's required for foundation.
I was gonna say,
All right, I'll admit 9 over objection. Thank you.
now, can you look at States 9?
You think there'd be someone there to do that for them? But lawyers running up and down to screen stuff.
So here, is this States 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, what kind of vehicle is that in the driveway?
Honda Accord,
What color is it?
appears to be black.
Okay, now, was this the same vehicle that you saw when you responded on Friday, February 1st?
I can't say that that's the exact.
Does it appear to be the same
It
vehicle?
appears
you
to
saw?
be, yes, sir.
Okay. I've never talked to you.
Anything further, this witness?
I got some question. Is that the car or not? You know or don't?
I can't recall. It was a dark and colored vehicle. No, sir.
Make the witness be excused.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Queen?
Yes, Mark.
Thank you.
Which is
Thank you.
pretty straightforward, no lies, just
All right,
let's
next
get it
witness.
done.
Receipt calls Austin Burnett.
I think the defense lawyer is going to challenge a lot of things, I think. Judge seems sensible. She seems, so far anyway. She seems good. Look at the beard on the guy. This guy, he's done for anyway, isn't he? In the sense of he's going to be in jail because of
Yes,
not just for murder, but for loads of other stuff.
Austin Burnett, AUSTIN BURNETT.
How were you employed back in February of 2019?
In February of 2019, I was a crime scene investigator for DeKalb County Police Department.
What does a crime scene investigator do?
So as a crime scene investigator, my role was primarily to document crime scenes. We document through photography, video, sketching, and evidence collection.
Are you still with DeKalb County Police?
No, I'm not.
What do you do now?
Right now, I am a high school teacher, teach math.
All right. And when did you leave DeKalb County?
I left DeKalb County in September of 2019.
Did you leave on good terms?
Yes.
And how long did you work as a crime scene investigator?
Total, almost 5 years.
And do you have any kind of training that would allow you to be a crime scene investigator?
Yes.
Specifically, what kind of training did you receive?
Lots of training through the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, basically classes that pertain to crime scene investigation. For example, how to operate a camera. That class was called Basic Digital and Photo Imaging. Quite an extensive training in fingerprints. I have over 200 hours of training with fingerprint classes and a state certification along with that. And just classes that generally teach you how to collect, preserve evidence, document crime scenes, and so on.
And do you know about how many hours of training you received?
I believe over 350 hours total.
All right. When you are working as a crime scene investigator, specifically here in DeKalb County, how are you made aware of a crime that you need to respond to?
So typically, we are made aware when we're on call, which this case was, we would get called by the dispatcher. The dispatcher would then tell us that a homicide detective has requested our presence, basically that a homicide scene or assault case has occurred. They then relay the detective's contact information to us, which we'll then contact the detective and get all of our information about the case.
Are you the first responder to the scene?
No.
And do you work as a team?
Yes.
Right. Do you remember responding to 1590 Planters Row on February 2nd, 2019?
Yes.
About where is that located?
It is in, I can't remember exactly the city that it's located in. I believe in Tucker.
Is it in DeKalb County?
It is in DeKalb County, yes.
Looking at the photograph, State's Exhibit 5, do you recall that being the location that you responded to that day?
Yes, that is the one.
And do you recall what time you responded?
It was a little bit afternoon, I believe.
And were there officers on the scene when you arrived?
Yes, there were.
All right. And was the scene secure?
Yes.
What does it mean to have a secure scene?
Secure scene basically means that there's a heavy presence in this case of basically law enforcement personnel that are ensuring that no outside personnel aside from law enforcement personnel, doing their duties can go inside or outside the scene.
Are law enforcement officers who respond to scenes trained on how to handle evidence?
Yes.
Are they trained to not touch evidence when they find it?
Yes.
And when you responded, did you know anything about what the case was about?
When I responded, I got with the first responding officer to get all the case information. And the case, well, basically, I got the information that a homicide had occurred.
And can you just give a general description of what the scene consisted of?
So when I arrived on the scene, basically saw this house at 1590 Planters Row, and it's just a large single-family dwelling, and it had 3 stories in total inside the house.
And was it in the middle of a street, on the end of the street?
It was in a cul-de-sac, I believe.
Okay. I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 9, 10, and 11. State's Exhibits 9 and 11 are already in evidence, but I'm going to have you look at these. Could you describe what these 3 photographs are just generally?
States Exhibit 9, 10, and 11 are overall exterior digital photographs of the outside residence of the
How are
home.
we doing, sir?
Did you take these photographs?
Hope you're well.
Yes, I did.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the exterior of that house when you arrived there on February 2nd?
Yes.
Okay, at this time I move to admit State's Exhibit 9.
Any objection? I think 9's already in. And
I'm sorry, number 10 is the exhibit that I meant to tender.
Any objection to 10? Admitted.
When
Not sure
you
who's left, you know.
responded to the crime scene,
We've had a disaster
You-
with Scream, so
did you see any kind of signs of forced entry?
Not that I could tell, no.
Do you recall how many outside entrances there were to the home?
To the best of my recollection, I believe there were 5 entrances total to the home.
Did you inspect them all?
Yes.
And were officers going in and out of any particular entrance?
We were primarily using the garage to enter the home.
So when you got there, did you inspect all the other doors to determine whether they were locked?
Yes.
And were they?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay. And what about the windows? Were there any broken windows?
There were not.
All right. Looking at State's Exhibit 9, there is a vehicle parked in the left, on the left-hand side of that photograph. And was that vehicle present when you responded to the scene?
Yes, it was.
Did you run the tag?
I did not, but I believe somebody else on the scene did.
All right. Just going to show the jury.
sure we're still here, Lefty, but nice to see you. Thanks for popping in.
And State's Exhibit 11.
Spider Girl, you still here? Giovanna, you here? Spider Girl
Did
probably
you
sleeping.
I'm sorry, back to State's Exhibit 10. Were there any vehicles parked in the garage when you arrived there?
No.
Can you, did you process the interior of the house as well?
Yes.
Can you just give a general description of it?
The general description of the inside of the home, it was very organized, immaculately clean, and quite a lot of rooms. The house was very large, lots of square footage, just basically lots of different rooms consisting of the home.
Did you or one of your teammates create a crime scene sketch?
The other crimes investigator assisting me on the case created the sketch of the crime scene.
What is a crime scene sketch?
So a sketch basically consists of measurements that we collect basically from wall to wall, door to door, and we'll be able to recreate to scale what the basically the interior of the home looks like according to our measurements.
All right, I'm gonna show you State Exhibits 12 and 13. Can you please describe for the jury what these items are?
States Exhibit 12 and 13 are both consist of the crime scene sketches that my coworker created of the interior of the home.
And do they fairly and accurately represent the interior of the home?
Yes, they do.
I move to admit State Exhibits 12 and 13.
Any objection? Admitted.
Mr. Burnett, I'm gonna ask that you. Remove that.
Okay.
What was that?
All right, this is State Exhibit 12. What portion of the house is depicted here in State Exhibit 12?
So this is the main floor to the residence.
All right, you should be able to write on that now. Can you just put an X where the front door is located, just to sort of orient the jury to what we're looking at?
The front door to the home is right here.
Okay, that is working, all right. And where is the garage?
The garage, entrance to the garage is right here.
Can you just draw a little bit larger so it's not hard to see? Or circle it maybe? Okay. And where is the garage door that a car would drive through?
The garage door would be right here. That would be where the car would drive into the garage.
And where is the kitchen area?
The kitchen is this whole area right here.
All right. And looking at this, we see the X on the bottom. Is that as if we're looking from the street?
Yes, yeah, this would, this is oriented as if we were looking at it from the driveway, from the street.
All right. And did you in fact take photographs of the interior of the house as well?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you State Exhibits 14 through 45, as well as 86 and 87. And Investigator Burnett, did you have the opportunity to review these items prior to coming into court today?
Yes, I did.
If you could just flip through them and in general, tell the jury what they are.
So all of these photographs are basically depict the interior of the home. So just basically showing the general conditions that the home was found in as I arrived on the scene.
And do they fairly and accurately show what a home looked like on that day?
Yes.
I'm going to start with Exhibits 14 and Exhibit 15. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure, this time I need to admit State's Exhibits 14 through 45 and State's Exhibit 86 and 87.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Sorry about that, I got a little ahead of myself. All right, you discussed the doors to the home. And I'm going to show you State Exhibit 8. What are we looking at here? I'm sorry, State Exhibit 14. What are we looking at here?
So this is the door jamb of basically the garage door.
And what about State Exhibit
And that is the correlating door jamb to the frame of that garage entrance.
Okay, and were there any signs of forced entry?
Not that I could tell, no.
Okay, and what about the other remaining doors? Did you check those doors for forced entry as well?
Yes, the other remaining doors did not appear to be forced open either.
And do they have deadbolts like what we see here on State Exhibit 14?
From what I recall, yes.
And through what door did you gain entry into the house?
From the garage entrance.
Okay, is that what we're looking at State Exhibit 14 and 15?
Yes.
And what is the area to the left of the stairs when you enter?
To the left of the stairs, I believe it is a laundry room.
All right, this is Steve's Exhibit 16. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that doorway leads into the laundry room.
And looking again at Steve's Exhibit 12, where is that located when you look at this exhibit?
So I was positioned about right here when taking that picture. So there's still the area you can see about right here where there appear to be like a desk, and then the entrance to the laundry room going forward.
All right, I'm going to show you what I marked as State Exhibit 46. What is this item?
It is a brown Michael's Kors purse.
Is that in fact something that you found in the house?
Yes.
Okay, and where did you find that?
It was on the chair that was basically pulled out of that little desk area right between basically the garage entrance and the laundry room.
Do we see that purse here in State Exhibit 6, which is being published right now?
Yes.
Okay, and is it the same or similar condition as it was when it was discovered that day?
Yes.
I moved to State Exhibit 47.
46.
Hmm, 46.
Any objection to 46?
Lefty, are you still here or what?
Mr. Burnett, if you could open up that purse for me.
Are you walking up Spider Girl now? I speak to you. Sorry, Spider Girl.
Oh,
She's a 50.
let me give you some gloves.
State attorney. The defense attorney's a 50 as well. She's nice. Oh, you're here. Oh, sorry, mate. I saw it. I was on Twitter when I saw your message. It's quiet. So we got Spider Girl here
Is
who
there a wallet in that purse?
just came off a night
Yes,
shift
there is.
earlier on.
And can you remove it,
She
please?
works nights.
And open it up?
So she's probably sleeping right now.
Are there financial documents in that wallet?
There appear to be several receipts and other financial documents, yes.
And what about a driver's license?
Yes, there is.
And whose driver's license is that?
Driving.
The driver's license of Shirley Merritt.
Okay. And what about
Happy
credit
days. I
cards?
feel privileged to drive
Yes,
in
there are.
on the.
And looking in there, do you see any checks?
Good man. I won't distract you anyway. But when you get to see the stream properly, there's two attorneys here who are, I would say,
Not that I
rather
can see
good
off of
for what we're
just
interested in.
looking through here. Yes, okay, yep, there are checks in here.
Are there blank checks in there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And what about any other financial documents in that purse?
Yes, there are several financial documents.
Okay. Is there a checkbook in the purse?
Yes, yes, there is.
Okay. And what is the name on the checks in that checkbook?
The names on the checks are Shirley Merritt.
Thank you.
So what I've done today is my second stream. Of course, we kept crashing. Mic wouldn't work, audio wouldn't work, nothing would work.
All right. Did you
Lost loads of
process
viewers
the
today on Rumble,
Yes, I
a
did.
little bit on YouTube.
17. What are we looking at in this photograph?
So in State's Exhibit 17, this is a overall photograph just showing the area of the dining room. From this perspective, the kitchen would have been right behind me, but it shows the dining room as well as the stairs leading up to the upper floor.
Was the table set like that when you responded to the crime scene? And if you look at State Exhibit 18, that shows is a better photograph.
Yes, it was set just like that.
Can you describe what you found in the kitchen?
In the kitchen, immediately we noticed on the island of the kitchen, there were several documents, basically like a birth certificate, among other documents with the name Richard Merritt, I believe. And on the kitchen counter, there was a knife block that had been that had two slots where two missing knives were from that knife block. And basically just in the kitchen overall, there were pots and pans that were in the middle of creating or cooking a meal. Basically, one was filled with pasta, another was filled with sauce. There was a salad bowl. So it was in the middle of basically preparing a meal.
We'll get to that in a moment. But right now, right in the middle of the kitchen island, kind of to the left of the room cup, there is a placard with a one on it. First of all, what is that placard?
So the placard that labels evidence number 1, those are the documents that I mentioned before, where basically just like a birth certificate, among other documents, to Richard Merritt.
All right, I'm going to show you
Vince,
Exhibit 47.
Stream me out some feedback. They tweeted me back, thankfully.
What is this item?
That is the. So this is a legal document and contains basically from Virginia. And it contains the birth certificate of Richard Merritt.
Okay, is that in fact the item that is marked by Exhibit 1 in that photo, or I'm sorry, by the number 1 placard in the photograph that we're looking at the screen?
Yes, this is the same item.
And has it been altered in any way?
No.
All right, I move to admit State's Exhibit 47. State's Exhibit 21. And State's Exhibit 22. There's another one of those yellow placards with a 2 on it. What we need to mark there?
So the evidence placard number 2 was intended to mark the knife block.
Which shows State's Exhibit 23, which is a kind of closer image of that. If you look at that knife block, there appears to be a knife missing. Is that correct?
Yes,
Was that knife found anywhere in the kitchen?
it was not anywhere in the kitchen, no.
What did you find regarding these pots and pans on the stove?
The pots and pans contained food items such as pasta, sauce.
Did that
Last
pasta
meal.
appear to have been cooked?
It did appear to be cooked, yes.
Were the pots and pans, I'm sorry, was the stove on when you arrived?
No, it was not.
And do you have any idea, did it look like that food had been there for a long time?
No, it's expectation.
Your Honor, I think you can testify as to the quality of the food. I think that's common knowledge. Okay, was the food cold?
It did appear to be cold, yes. There was no steam rising from it at all.
And what about what we see here in State Exhibit 27? Were those items on the island in the kitchen?
Yes, on the island on the opposite side, it consisted of a basic salad bowl as well as a dish containing fruits.
And this is actually State Exhibit 26.
Corn flakes as well.
Did you process the area where the deceased was found?
Yes,
I'm going to go back to State's Exhibit 7, which has previously been tendered into evidence. Mr. Burnett, do you see on this exhibit where the deceased was found? If you'll give me a moment, I'll set it up so you can draw. Can you see where the deceased was found?
yes. It was right here at the bottom of the stairs leading to the basement.
Can't see it.
If we look at State's Exhibit 12, I'm going to have you kind of annotate where that is on this floor. That's depicted
It's
in
not very clear, unfortunately.
In the front entrance to the home, leading from this door right here, there is, in that same area, you can go pretty close by to the staircase that leads down towards the basement.
All right, I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 27. Is this how you found the body of Shirley Merritt?
Yes.
What, can you describe what it appeared like to you? I mean, what you saw on Shirley Merritt's body?
So just upon initial examination, she was lying on the ground on her left side. It appeared that just looking at the back side, there was dried blood from what appeared to be a cut. And that's all I could initially tell without tampering with the body before medical examiners arrived.
Did you ever touch Shirley Merritt's body?
No.
And what is your responsibility when a deceased person is found on a crime scene as a crime scene investigator?
So again, in crime scene investigations, we are primarily there to document the scene. So even when the decedent is found, we are still there for the documentation purposes of it.
And who is responsible for moving the body?
For moving the body, that would be the medical examiner's office and the medical examiner's investigators that arrived to the scene.
Okay, and in this case, did the medical examiner arrive on the scene while you were there?
Yes, they did.
Did you take photos both before and after Ms. Merritt's body was removed?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 29. What is this photograph that we're looking at here?
This is a photograph that shows the same area that the decedent was lying in, and it was a photograph taken after she was removed from the scene.
Investigator Burnett, did you take photographs of Shirley Merritt's body after the medical examiner rolled her over?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna have you look at State's Exhibit 28. And does that show what was found when Shirley Merritt's body was turned over?
Yes.
And can you describe what her face looked like?
So in the right side of her face, there was a knife blade from a chef's knife protruding from it.
Oh, no.
On the left side of her face, there were basically blood tumors from where it appeared as if she sustained heavy trauma. And there were several areas of just blood and bruising all around her face.
Oh, man.
You said that there was a knife blade protruding from her face. Did you collect that knife blade?
I did not collect the knife blade. To the best of my recollection, it was transported with the body to the medical examiner's office.
I'm gonna move on to State's Exhibit 30. What is marked here as State's Exhibit 3 and 4? I'm sorry, as your plaque was number 3 and 4.
So evidence marker labeled number 3, labeled a black handle or a hilt to a knife. And evidence marker number 4 labeled a 35-pound dumbbell.
Can you say approximately how close to the deceased those were located, those were?
I believe about 4 feet approximately.
Looking at State's Exhibit 31, did you collect that item?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 48. Can you please remove that item and take a look and tell the jury what it is?
This was that knife blade that was labeled as evidence marker number 3, or sorry, not the knife blade, but the hilt to the knife that was labeled evidence marker 3.
And is it in the same or similar condition as it was when you collected it that day?
It appears to have been processed after I collected it.
What do you mean processed?
So from what I can tell, just by looking at it, it does look like super glue has been adhered to this knife hilt. That is a standard procedure to process for fingerprints.
Otherwise, does it appear to be in the same condition?
It otherwise would be in the same condition, yes.
Okay, and is it in the packaging that you sealed back on February 2nd, 2019?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Here, at this time, I moved to State's Exhibit 48.
Any objection? Admitted.
Did this item appear to be of a size that would match the blade protruding from Ms. Merritt's face?
It very well could match the blade to the hilt, yes.
And looking back at State's Exhibit 23, did it appear to be the same size and shape as if it had come out of this knife block?
The hilt was consistent as far as size and shape of coming from that knife block, yes.
Oh, woman, like,
Moving on to State's
Jesus.
Exhibit 32. What is this a photograph of?
States Exhibit 32 represents a photograph of the 35-pound dumbbell that was labeled as evidence marker 4. You can tell on the left side of the photo, basically on the left to the numbers 35, there was suspected blood on that dumbbell.
I am going
Jeez.
to show you State's Exhibit 50. Yes. You want it? Do you see it? Mr. Burnett, could you remove that item from the box and show the jury what, well, you describe it first. Tell the jury what it is.
So this is the 35-pound dumbbell that you can see in the photo.
Is it in the same or similar condition as it was when you collected it that day?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and is it in the packaging that you placed it in?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to admit State's Exhibit 50.
Objection.
50 or 49?
So all confused. Okay, 49.
Any objection to 49?
No.
Admitted.
Okay. Can you just remove that and show the jury? Did you process the remainder of the basement?
Yes, I did.
You show the jury State's Exhibit 33. There are these French doors and windows in the back of this photograph. Would it have been possible to see Shirley Merritt's body through any of the windows in the house from where she was laying?
I don't believe so, no.
If you have in this photograph, kind of in front of these two baskets, a placard with the number 5 on it, what is that marking?
Evidence marker number 5
Oh, nice.
was labeling a indention in the carpet that it
Oh, I mean,
appears
the days
though
of
the
just
matching
this.
set to that 35-pound dumbbell. It basically appeared that the 35-pound dumbbell
Horrible.
had been moved from that location.
Show jury State's Exhibit 34. State's Exhibit
If he did this, like, how could you do that
This
to your
photograph,
mother?
there
Like,
is a second 35-pound dumbbell. Does that appear to have been a mate to the item that you just showed the jury, State's Exhibit 49?
It appears to have been, yes.
Were there any signs
an eye
of
out for these
struggle?
defense attorneys, man.
No signs of struggle that I could see, no.
What about any
Good
stairway
looking.
Shirley Merritt's body was in?
Just aside from that area right directly where she was, no sign of a struggle.
Did you process, oh, and was there any blood in the remainder of the basement or in that stairwell?
In the remainder of the basement or that stairwell, aside from where she was, no blood.
Did you process the remainder of the house?
Yes.
What was the condition of the remainder of the house?
So the remainder of the house was more or less the same as I described it earlier. It was very well organized, lots of furniture. Every bedroom was well furnished. Everything was immaculately clean. The whole house basically looked very clean and organized.
I am going to scroll through State's Exhibits 36 through 46 so the jury can see. Was there any overturned furniture throughout the house?
There was not, no.
Was there any blood or suspected blood throughout the house?
No blood or suspected blood that I could see through the remainder of the house.
Did you see any valuables in the house?
Yes.
What valuables did you see?
Electronics as far as TVs, furniture that was furnished in every room. There were dishes in a china cabinet. Several items of that could be considered valuable were throughout the home.
And I see that there's several, if you look at these photographs, there are several shelves containing items. Did you notice any damage to any of the walls or shelves?
No damage to the walls or shelves of the home, no.
And throughout the home, were there any signs of a struggle or a fight?
Not that we could tell. There were no signs of a struggle or fight throughout the home.
Did you find any other weapons in the house other than the knife and the dumbbell?
No other weapons, no.
Okay. And what about cell phones? Did you find any?
There were no cell phones that we found in the house, no.
I have no further questions.
No struggle or anything.
Mr. Queen, before we begin
Sure,
with calls, we're going
no.
to take a short recess. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break for about 10 minutes.
Okay, 10-minute break now. Do I go for a coffee? Do I go make a coffee
Bernadette,
now,
you can
or
step down, just don't discuss your testimony
just
with
talk
anyone.
shit for a little bit? Now, let's talk shit for a little bit, shall we? So, Lefty, because you're home now, you are so lucky. I hope the golf went well for you today, but I tell you what, we've had a mate today. This is my second stream. I'll mute this. Shut
Do you
up.
need
Will you,
extra
everyone?
gloves? We have those.
It's my second stream. So my mic wouldn't work in the first one, then the audio wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden, I kept crashing. StreamYard got kicked out probably like 12 times. Oh, so to close that down and start this one. So every time I start building viewers, I get kicked out. Rumble, I had quite a few people in Rumble got kicked out. Welcome, Rumble. Please like and follow on Rumble. Thank you very much. So basically, for those that don't know, like Lefty, we were doing the Clenny OnlyFans. I think Charlotte, but the audio and the video was so bad that I was like, my mic couldn't work, and I was Spider Girl's like, we can play through where the audio's gonna be bad for a while, and I was like, you know what? There's a new trial. I didn't know about this trial, so we just started watching it. But today's been a bear. Apologies to anyone that's been with me today. Spider Girl, you especially. Now, Spider Girl's probably sleeping because it's around this time she goes to sleep because she works late nights and doesn't finish till early in the morning, but she doesn't go to bed till later today. So we probably lost her. Giovanna, we gained back after a week and a half, and we found out that she wasn't getting the notifications that I was going live. Giovanna, if you're still here, you know what to do now. Every day, tomorrow, 10 o'clock Eastern, I will be live. Same for Monday. Same for every day now for a while. Because as soon as this one finishes, I'm going to be doing the Aaron Hernandez one. Unless there's a trial that happens, you know. We weren't planning on doing this trial, but and I'm going to be supposedly recording Idaho 4, episode 4 with Lady Law and Morgan, Miss Morgan, tomorrow night at midnight, my time. And we're going to hopefully do another one as well, start next week about Kohlberger as well, after what happens on Monday. And with that, people are leaving. It's like, can't win. Just want to try and update people what's going on. So this case is an interesting one. Having a knife pushed in your face, like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's horrible. If he did this, then give him life without parole. This is horrible to your own mother. Like, was he that desperate or was it? I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to hear. So there was a mistake. His ex-wife was on the stand. I did not like her at all. You could just tell she was just gunning for him. Just wants him in jail. Wants him in prison. So I take her testimony and I throw it out. Purely because I don't like that kind of testimony, where you can't answer certain questions because it's 4 years ago, but everything else is quite clear in your mind. Don't like that. And full well, he might have beaten her up, but she never told anybody. Didn't report it all these years, and all of a sudden she's on the stand today, and that's the first time she ever mentions that he beat her up. When defense attorney was saying, well, he's not an aggressive guy and stuff like that. She paused for like 5 seconds and came up with, well, he beat me up once. Don't like that. I mean, he may have done it, don't get me wrong, but it's like, come on. it's a little bit convenient, and I hate saying that, but why didn't she tell anybody? Not even at the time, but after that, she hasn't told anybody. So yeah, I don't know. But I think for the lads, the defense attorney and the state attorney, both females, they're lovely. They look lovely. I think the state's other lawyer, other attorney guy for the ladies, I think he looks cool. Or quite good looking, I think. And then the defense's attorney, he's got a cool beard. So a little bit for everybody, I think. Cool white beard. It's actually really cool, I think. So that's where we're at. Oh, excuse me, I'm tired. Went to the gym today. Had like 45, 50 minute workout on the gym. Then I came back. I walked for like, probably 30, 35 minutes. So I'm a little bit tired. Um, after doing that and then doing, but I'm enjoying the stream, enjoying doing this. But it's interesting that the prosecution's attorney said that she doesn't think that this is, like she says, you're gonna get to see um a handful of days of witnesses. So I don't see that they got all that many witnesses. It depends how many the defense have, but this could be done. Uh, excuse me, this could be with the jury middle to end of next week, which is the kind of trials that it's nice to have a buffer like this. Anyone that hasn't seen the OnlyFans one that was done last week, go to my channel and look at them on my playlist. That's my favorite one so far. I think just had a little bit of. I didn't know how to react in the end with it. So yeah, so here we are. I don't know who's here or who's on Rumble. Probably a lefty's here, I think. So, but yeah, who's on Rumble? I don't know. Rumble's disappointing today. Not you guys are watching. It's just every time we go up to like double figures, I'd crash and then I'd come back and we go start all over again and you all come back and then we got chucked out again. So that's disappointing. So I don't expect to see everyone back. All right, today. Hopefully, we get some more people tomorrow. I know a few people said Leah and all them said that they're coming tomorrow. I knew you were a lefty, so I'm just talking crap at the minute. Do you know what I mean? Put in the chat what was you round? What did you hit? Did you hit an 80, or was it a bad day? Or I should say, did you hit 70, or was it a bad day? Um, so yeah, what was I saying? Sorry, you ordered. Sorry. Trying to have a little bit of cold burger and stuff like that. Trying to prep for tomorrow night, and yeah, in a good way. There's a lot going on at the minute, so that's positive. 82. Ah, man, but it's not good for you because of your standards. But for most people, 82 is like I'll take that every day of the week. So you know, you got to look at it different. I mean that's got to play into it as well. Playing in the rain is not easy. Not easy at all. It's a lot harder than people think. I've played in the rain a couple of times. I hated it, if I'm being honest. It's not the same. It's not nice. You don't feel yourself sometimes. Everything plays differently. The ball plays differently. Greens obviously play differently. So, not that I know what I'm talking about mine, but it sounds good, though, doesn't it? But no, I have played a few times. Break 100. All right, I didn't know that. So I watched a program called Barstool with Trent from Barstool with the four play guys, and he was like doing it like break 100. And I think he's doing now break 90. And I think he might have done that one. So the next one's break 80 or something. But that was interesting. I did enjoy watching that series. There we are. Yeah, I didn't know about the spin, but I definitely knew about skids and about greens. Yeah, I definitely knew that. Because I've played it once. It was so frustrating. And like a putt normally would take me, say, two putts. It would take me like, 4 or 5. It was a bloody annoying. Hated it. So yeah, I don't know. So I didn't know that about the hundreds. Yeah, it's interesting. That's a great achievement. I must see now. Where's no, where is it here? Let me just have a quick look to see if I can find this. YouTube. 100. Let's have a look here. I'm not sure if you follow Barcelona foreplay golf and stuff, but I can find it here. It's in here somewhere. Yeah. Oh, there we are. I got it. I got a playlist here. Posted in here for you. Oh, definitely, definitely agree. Oh shit! Why didn't the link? Does it not? Oh no, sorry, mate, but that's the. It's on. So, anyways, if you can't grab that link, it's on. Oh, unless hang on, I think I know what I've done wrong here. If I do it this way, maybe it will work. No, it won't work. Right, fine. It's a series. I think you enjoy it. It's on foreplay golf on the playlist. Breaking 100, and he's got breaking 90. I think, yeah, breaking 90 is on now. Um, I I found it very interesting anyway. He had a pro instructor in the first one, showed him how it's done. He got close a few times and stuff like that. But at foreplay, they got golf series all around America. Um, Again, I might be, you might know about all that stuff, but it's very popular from what I gather. So yeah, what's that? What's that coming over the hill? Is that a monster? Is that a monster? I put two pictures of guys on there. I'm not even sure if it's him. I've not really seen the guy really. D D D D D D D D D D D D D D D D D. Oh right, okay. Yeah, I can imagine it is. I can imagine it is. Like I don't obviously don't follow. I follow the big tournaments, like but I don't. Yeah, I don't even. Yours look huge, though. Do you know what I mean? In America. Ba- ba- Let's see if I can. No, I won't. Yeah, I don't know enough about golf. I'm not gonna lie here and say, "Oh, right, oh yeah, I know what you mean." I'm I'm an absolute novice. I'm 1 out of 10 in golf knowledge, so I'll believe anything you say about golf. To be fair, um, obviously played a little bit, but as I said last night, I'm not not good. It's one of those frustrating things. You hit one of those shots where it just gets you back in again. You're like, oh, that's a good shot. And then the next hole, you takes you 18 shots. Fucking nightmare. Yeah, so I think I've Celtic Manor's got a nice course in Wales, but I've never played it. I've worked there, but not played it. Particularly landscape and sculpted natural land. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Remember, I remember I played golf. One of the last times I played golf, I just couldn't hit it, and it landed next to a pond. And the guy I was with said, "Oh, I said, I'm going to hit this in the pond." He goes, "It's literally it's 2 yards to the pond. You're never going to hit it." I hit it straight to the pond. It's one of those days, frustrating days. That you just doesn't matter what you do, nothing works. Nothing works. You swing, everything just. But then there's that one little thing. I remember hitting the ball and it's swerving as it should, and you just like admiring it. And it's like, whoa. I look around there. Does anyone see that? Anyone see that? It's amazing. You just feel chuffed. But, yeah, once in a blue moon. Or it's when sometimes those ball collectors in those um, tractors go around and they're like, "Yeah, play on." I'm like, "No, no, mate, you carry on," because there's no way I'm gonna hit it that far. Um, so yeah, fine. Well, yeah, you just gotta go with it. Oh, I mean, I bought, I think, 100 balls like at once, and I think the first time I went out with them properly, I'm not exaggerating when I say I probably lost about 35. Um, it was just infuriating. There's nothing I could do or hit it or wherever. I couldn't do anything. I'd I'd lose a ball and they're like, "Oh, it's in there. I can't be asked. I'm just playing again from here." Oops, hang on. Sorry, guys. Start.
Correct.
Now, CSI, is that like CSI on TV?
Not at all, no.
Tell the jury how it's not like it is on TV.
Just gonna make a call.
So, for example, on TV, I watched an episode once where they pulled a perfect fingerprint, I mean, full detail, and then instantly ran it, and the system found a match without any work needed. The actual process is a lot more complex than that. So a lot of the details are basically exaggerated. It's a lot more timely to get results, basically based on, lab tests and so on.
Okay. And on CSI, on the TV show, those guys do everything. They investigate the scene, they go out and catch suspects, all that good stuff. Are you involved in determining suspects or finding suspects?
No part of basically my job is purely objective, not subjective. So all I do is look at the evidence and that's it.
Now, in this case, on February 2nd, it looks like you arrived there about 12:31. Is that correct?
That sounds about right. Yes.
And obviously, by the time you arrived, it was an active crime scene, correct?
Yes.
And by the time you arrived, there were police officers on scene.
Yes.
There were uniform officers of various degrees and levels in the police force, correct?
Yes.
And there were also detectives on scene, correct?
Correct.
And those detectives, were they assigned to the homicide unit?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you arrive on the scene, do you take over the scene, being a CSI person?
So the crime scene is delegated to us. It is the main responsibility of us to process that crime scene, although it is a team effort as well.
Okay. Now, you say the team, you, along with other people who were actually there with CSI that day, correct?
Yes.
Because I believe on that particular date, also CSI Lester was with you.
That is correct. Yes.
CSI Lester was also a crime scene investigator at the time.
Correct.
And on that particular date, you were the senior and they were the junior.
Not necessarily senior, junior. We kind of label it as primary, secondary. We actually started on the exact same day, so we were on equal footing for sure. But basically, the primary is delegated to take the photographs and collect the evidence of the scene, whereas the secondary is delegated to do the sketch and do a digital recording of the scene.
Like particularly in this case, we have the diagram, and the diagram has H. Lester at the bottom. And that was part of Lester's duty, right? In order to do the diagram.
Yes, that's
The
correct.
diagram's done, basically take measurements on scene, correct?
Yes,
They do like a rough sketch on scene, correct?
yes,
And then often they go back to the office and do a nice, more formal, prettier diagram.
that is exactly correct.
And that's what happened in this case.
Yes,
But as you mentioned, you being the primary, a lot of your duties involve taking photographs.
yes,
And in this case, Ms. Pott asked you about processing. In processing, that was primarily taking photographs, correct?
in this case, primarily taking photographs and collecting the evidence. Yes.
And collecting the evidence. And again, let's talk about the evidence for a moment. There are a few placards in the house. And in the placard, we got evidence placard 1. And looks like we have the birth certificate, which you've already been introduced, correct?
Yes,
And you recall that there was also a large envelope on the kitchen counter with other various items inside, correct?
looking, kind of reviewing what that item was, it appears that the birth certificate was basically attached to two other documents in that same kind of enclosure.
And then evidence 2, that's the block where we see the kitchen knives.
Correct.
And as you noted, it looks like it appears though this, I think it was 6 or 8? I think it was 8 and 1 was missing, correct?
I couldn't recall to the number, but the top left, where the chef's knife would go, that was the missing one.
Correct. And evidence 3, that's the black knife handle which you find downstairs.
Yes,
Okay. And evidence 4, that's the dumbbell, which you have right there in front of you, correct?
correct.
And evidence 5, it looks like that's the placard where you have the area adjacent where there appears to be an impression in the floor, presumably possibly from the dumbbell, correct?
Possibly, correct, yes.
And that's why you took the photo, because you said, oh, there's an impression in the floor. Dumbbells are heavy, 35 pounds in this case, and it's likely caused that impression in the floor.
Correct.
Oh, my apologies. I'm trying to stay awake this afternoon. I'm just talking too fast. I apologize. And so those are the placards in which you noted for us, correct?
Yes,
And we have about 20 or 30 photos, but that's not the full extent of photos you took, correct?
not the full extent, no.
Because obviously this was, as you said, a large house.
Yes,
We're talking a house in excess of 5,000 square feet. Is that fair to say?
fair to say yes.
And multiple, many bathrooms, and many bedrooms,
Correct,
and many common areas also.
for sure, yes.
And so we have a portion of the photographs, and you took photos of that door which leads from the garage, I guess, up to the laundry room, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you take photos of the rest of the doorways?
Not that I recall, no. We observed that to the best of my recollection, once we entered through the garage, we observed that the rest of the doorways were locked and that there didn't appear to be any damage to the frame or the door jamb from the outside and inside of the house. So we didn't, not that I recall, open those doors.
Now, that doorway leading from the garage into the house, you took photographs of it. Did you do any other processing of it?
No other processing of it, no.
And particularly, did you examine the doorknob, the door jamb, the lock strike, or any items for fingerprints?
We did not dust them for fingerprints, just for the sake that basically at that point, the first responding officers had entered the home, the detectives had entered, the family member that found the decedent also entered. So basically the judgment call on that, we call it overlapping matrices as far as fingerprints go. So basically as so many hands touch the doorknob, basically there's going to be so many overlapping of the friction ridges that consist of the fingerprint that it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to basically get a clear fingerprint off of that doorknob.
Did you even attempt it?
It was not attempted, no.
And likewise, I guess for the same reason, no one attempted to take any DNA from that particular area of the door, the doorknob, the walls around there.
For that same reason, yes, because there would be multiple DNA profiles.
What about in the kitchen area, around that block though? Were there anyone try to get any DNA or fingerprints from around that kitchen block? Presumably the knife was taken from.
There was not any DNA or fingerprints taken from the kitchen area either.
In the downstairs area, like along the walls, because basically talking the staircase, it goes down, and then we have Ms. Merritt found there at the bottom, along the rails or the walls, was any fingerprints or DNA, anything taken in that area?
No, in that area, no, there were not any fingerprints or DNA taken. Along the walls, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Sir. Right. So yeah, no DNA or fingerprints taken from that area.
Okay. So, but you mentioned to us, and we have it for you, the knife handle and also the dumbbell. And those items, how were they preserved? Evidentiary values.
So the knife block was packaged in a paper bag, and the dumbbell was also packaged in several layers of paper bags because of the weight of it, so that it wouldn't bust through. And the purpose of that is to prevent cross-contamination, so that as long as there's basically a barrier from the inside to outside, nothing can contact the item on the inside of that bag. That is how we typically go about preserving evidence.
Now, on scene, I believe it's, given what you told us, I assume you were in gloves, right?
Yes.
Love you.
And
tweet.
on scene, did you attempt to get any DNA or fingerprints, anything like that from those items?
Not from those items, no. What the judgment call on while we were on the scene, what we had decided as a team was that we would preserve the items to send to GBI for testing. We wanted to, more so, it is best practice to send them the entire item rather than just a swab of it. So that way GBI can do all sorts of additional tests rather than, basically they have the whole item as compared to just a little swab of an area.
Now you say as a team, who's part of this team? Making the decision?
Primarily ourselves, myself and Investigator Lester, as well as the homicide detectives. Detective McQuilkin was one of the main detectives that worked with us on the scene.
Now, let's talk about a couple other things in which you took photographs of and maybe even collected. There was I understand it was an Apple iPad with a purple case. You call that?
Yes.
And what was done with that item?
That item was seized during the search warrant. So Detective McQuilkin I photographed it and documented it, but Detective McQuilkin collected that item.
Also understand it was an Apple iPad with a black case and charger. Likewise, that item collected?
Exact same scenario. I documented it and Detective McQuilkin collected it.
I believe also there was a Kindle with a black case. Was that also collected?
Kindle with the black case. I would have to refer to my report to make sure that was also part of it.
Okay, first judge.
Yes.
Yes, there was a Kindle with a black case collected, documented by myself and collected by McQuilkin as well.
And likewise, we have recall collecting some letters on top of a nightstand.
Yes, the handwritten letters.
Recall collecting a laptop. A phone laptop.
Yep, the laptop as well. All of those were also collected by McQuilkin.
Now, when you say those collected by McQuilkin, do they remain in his custody or do they go to someone else's custody?
So at that point, he would be responsible for the custody of it entirely, as far as the packaging, the transportation, making sure that it is free from cross-contamination, as well as other personnel getting their hands on it. So he would be entirely responsible for those items.
Now, those particular items, to your knowledge, was any preliminary testing done on the scene, again, for fingerprints or blood?
Not for those items, no.
Okay, I mean DNA.
I do not believe so, no.
Now, you tell us about the dumbbell and the possible impression left in the carpet downstairs. Recall that?
Yes.
And because primarily the upstairs area, there was a lot of hardwood. There was some marble tile. There was also some carpet. But primarily downstairs, it was carpeted area, correct?
Primarily, yes.
Okay. Now, so when you were downstairs and you saw that impression that the dumbbell may have left, did you take the time in order to do any footprint impressions? See if there was a particular shoe that may have caused or walked from one room to the other?
We did examine the carpet entirely for other such impressions, but we did not see any impression that would resemble a shoe print or anything of the sort. Just that was the only one that stuck out. So that was the one that was documented.
Now, you noted on the second that it appears as though that there was not just blood, but hair on the floor. Correct?
Hair on the floor, you said?
In the basement area.
The basement area. I believe it would have been hair in that general area where the decedent was found.
Okay. Because it looks like you noted 35-pound dumbbell with suspected blood and hair.
Yes. Okay. So the hairs were on the dumbbell. Basically, they were. So where the blood was on the dumbbell, there were also hairs that were basically embedded in that dried blood.
And those particular hairs, how were those processed by you?
So as far as what we were able to do at Gap County crime scene, we did not have the capabilities or the training to test those hair samples. So what we were mainly responsible for was preserving them so that we could send it to GBI where they have the capability to then test it. So just like routinely out of all of our other evidence, we would make sure that it's free from cross-contamination so that nothing could tamper with the evidentiary value of it. And it would then be sent to GBI.
And from what I see here, it looks like that you were there on scene for about 3:42. Does that sound correct?
That sounds about correct, yes.
About 3 hours and some change?
Yes.
Now, was that the extent of your involvement on February 2nd?
I believe I took some follow-up photographs of the evidence that I collected. But as far as that day for the original scene, that was the extent of my involvement on that day.
And you just led right to where I'm headed. You recall around about February 26th, taking some follow-up photos.
February 26th, if that's the date on the report, yes.
Okay. And when you took follow-up photos, where were you?
In in our lab area of the crime scene unit.
And at that particular time, what were you tasked with doing?
At that particular time, we basically, in case that the photographs didn't turn out clear or anything like that, basically, or if additional photos were needed, we would take basically additional photos from all angles in the lab just to make sure that every bit of it was documented.
Now, the additional photos appears though you took photos again of the birth certificate and the paperwork.
Yes.
And it looks like you also took photos of that knife handle, correct?
Yes.
And also pictures of that 35-pound dumbbell with the suspected blood and hair, correct?
Yes.
So on that second time in which you processed those items, at that time, did you do any swabbing or smears or attempted fingerprints?
At that time, it was already decided that the items would be going to GBI, and it's a preferred policy that we don't tamper if it is being sent to GBI to basically not mess with it at all on our end. So that way GBI can have it tamper proof and they can basically start their processing from ground zero.
So to your knowledge, after February 26th, were you involved with DKPD in the processing of any of these items?
No, I was not.
Nothing further, thank you.
Can you read the rest?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next witness.
Your Honor, this thing called Jesse Worley.
So far, so good with this judge. It's quite fair, I think, so far. Hello?
I do. My name is Jessie Worley, Jesseworley.
Good afternoon, Ms. Worley.
Good afternoon.
Where do you work, ma'am?
I work at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in the Division of Forensic Sciences, or the Crime Lab, in the Impressions Evidence section.
And your title there, what do you do?
My title is a crime lab scientist, and I am signed off to do latent print and footwear casework.
Okay. And your duties with the GBI, can you describe them?
Yes. So as a latent print examiner, our section accepts evidence from crime scenes that they've processed for latent prints or fingerprints. We also accept items of evidence that need to be processed to develop fingerprints on them. And we conduct comparisons to known fingerprint exemplars and do database searches on the state and federal fingerprint databases.
And what's your education?
I have a bachelor's of science in forensic and investigative sciences from West Virginia University.
Okay. And in order to become a latent print examiner, what kind of training do you have to have?
I completed the GBI's training program for latent prints and for footwear. Both training programs are about 2 years long. They cover all the topics we need to know to do the basic analysis for casework, as well as the history of the discipline. And then also we cover competency testing and then report writing.
Yeah, can I approach?
Just mortified there. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Better. I think I asked about your training. And how long have you done this work?
I was hired at the GBI in 2007 and started working fingerprint cases at the very beginning of 2009, and then went through footwear training in 2020 and just finished that up last year. But I've continued to work fingerprint cases basically the last 15 years.
All right. Approximately how many fingerprint cases do you think you've worked?
A lot. I've averaged about 20 cases a month since I started working cases.
And have you ever testified as an expert?
I have.
How many times?
Today we might be 73, would be 73.
Okay. And Your Honor, at this time, we would move to admit Ms. Worley as an expert in latent print examination.
Any objection? No, she will be so recognized.
All right. Did you prepare a report for this case?
I did.
Okay. Now, when the GBI gets a case, what happens on the front end?
Any evidence that comes into the GBI, the agency that's submitting it is required to properly package and label their evidence and fill out a GBI evidence submission form to turn in with the evidence so that we can open and generate a case in our system so that we can track all of the items of evidence and the requested testing services. We also track the chain of custody for each item as it moves throughout our laboratory system, and that's where we generate our reports.
Okay. And for this case, was like a number created?
Yes, so every case that comes in from an agency is given a unique GBI or Division of Forensic Sciences case number, and then each item is numbered and tracked with that case.
All right. And for this case, can you just say what the case number was?
The DOFS case number was 2019-1005039.
Okay. Now, as it relates to latent print examination, did the GBI receive any items for that?
Yes.
What was received?
The item that was submitted with a request for latent print processing was a seal package containing a black plastic knife handle.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 48.
Thank you.
Can you look through that item and say what that is?
Yes,
Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
This was the knife handle that was submitted from DeKalb County to be processed for latent prints.
Okay. And how do you know that it's the same item?
When we enter cases at GBI, everything gets barcoded. The barcode label has the case number, and then each item has its own unique item number. In this instance, State's Exhibit 48 appears as item 4 in the crime lab reporting system. And then I also hand wrote and dated on the package as well as the item itself.
Okay. Now, obviously, it's been open today, but when you got it for testing, did it appear that the item had been tampered with?
No.
Now, what were you asked to do with the item?
The item was submitted with a request for latent print processing,
Okay.
which means that we would attempt different chemical or physical detection methods to try and develop fingerprints on the surface of that item.
Okay. And can you just describe the process that you would put an item through in order to try to get a print?
Yes. So the first step in any fingerprint processing protocol that we would do at GBI would be to conduct a visual examination. We do two things during this first step. One, we're assessing the item of evidence to determine what the surfaces are made out of, what kind of components exist on that item so that we can apply an appropriate processing protocol. And then we're also looking to see if there are any fingerprints that might be visible before we attempt any methods. Throughout our process, if at any point we do observe or see something that could be usable for a comparison, we would use digital camera system in order to photograph and preserve that evidence.
Okay. And is this process generally accepted in this area of expertise?
Well, the processing that I applied to this item, it's a black plastic handle, so it's a mostly non-porous surface. So the typical processing protocol for non-porous items would be to use superglue fuming and then possibly also a dye stain. In this instance, I did the visual examination and the superglue fuming.
Okay. And I think I kind of jumped the gun here. What are latent prints?
So latent prints, everyone has what we refer to as friction ridge skin on the palm sides of your hands, as well as also the bottoms of your feet. You have basically raised portions of skin that form the ridges, and then there are valleys or furrows in between. The ridges on your hands and on your fingers basically flow in concert together, but there are different formations within that flow of ridges. Individually, the ridges start and stop or split into two in different places, and it's those placement of all those features that are unique to each individual. What we look for when we do fingerprint work is to see if when someone handled an item, that arrangement of features is reproduced on the surface, kind of like if you have a rubber stamp and you put ink on it and then you stamp onto a piece of paper. That's kind of how a fingerprint works. You've got sweat or oil or dirt or residue that's on the surface of your hands, and when you handle something, you transfer and make an impression of those features on another item.
Now, which of the processes did you do on the knife handle?
As I stated, I did a visual examination and then super glue fuming.
Okay. And what were the results?
The results of my testing in this case were negative.
Okay. Now, what does that mean?
So with our policy at GBI, our determination of whether an item has positive results comes down to how many of those features we can see. If a fingerprint or a latent print develops, we have to have at least 7 to say that it's positive. So in a case where something is negative, it can mean a couple of different things. It can be that there was no development of superglue on that item at all, period. It could be that the whole surface produced a reaction and so nothing can be seen because there's just a total overall reaction. Or it can be that there are areas that could have been fingerprint or palm print detail, but they're not clear, they're obscure because they overlay one another, or there's just a general lack of clarity.
Okay. Now, for this item here, the texture of the knife or of the knife handle itself, would that play any part in whether or not you could get a latent print?
It could. Fingerprint details are very small. So if you have a surface that has texture that is very small as well, it can interfere with how clearly those details are reproduced or how clearly you can discern them as an examiner from one area to another, just by interfering and breaking up the flow or the continuity of the ridges that are on the surface.
Okay. And this surface, can you just describe as to what it is?
In this case, the surface was the plastic knife handle, so it did have some texturing to it.
I think that you had used the term non-porous.
Yes.
Other than the texture of the item itself, are there any other factors that could impact the ability to obtain a latent print?
Yes, there are a number of different things that could impact that.
What are they?
So starting with the person who's handling the item, if your hands have been freshly washed or your skin is very dry, there's not necessarily a lot of residue on the surface to actually impact a transfer. If your skin and your ridges are less robust, maybe your skin is a little older, it's lost a little elasticity, the ridges tend to be a little shorter, a little more softened. They don't record or reproduce as well in fingerprints. The surface of the item, like I said, texture versus something smooth can impact how well a print can be seen. The type of material it is can play a part. Like I said, this is a non-porous item. Non-porous surfaces are typically non-absorbent. So any residue that makes up a fingerprint is just sitting on the surface and is very delicate. And it could be easy to destroy or damage that fingerprint until it's processed. The way an object is handled, if you think about it in terms of like things that are a tool, they're meant to be handled in a specific way. So if one person handles it and then another person handles it in the same manner, the second person's prints may be erasing or obliterating those of the first and just overlaying on top of them. And so you're taking away from the clarity that could be observed.
Okay. So there's a lot of factors that play in whether or not you can obtain a print.
Yes.
All right. Every time you do this process, do you always obtain a print?
No, not always.
Now, I want to show you a photo of State Exhibit 32. Can you take a look at that? What is that?
States Exhibit 32 is a photograph of a 35-pound weight.
Okay. Now, the grip of the dumbbell, what kind of surface is that?
This one appears to be made out of metal. It may have some sort of clear coating to keep the metal from rusting, but it looks like the handle also has some texturing, probably to improve grip.
Would the grip itself be a texture that you would expect it to get a print from?
We may see development if it were to be processed, but it wouldn't be I wouldn't expect to see very clear and usable fingerprint detail.
I told everyone that you would not, Spider Girl. No, you didn't miss
So-
anything. Fine.
The fact that you got a negative,
Well, it was still worth watching it. But
a negative result on the knife handle, does that mean that the knife handle wasn't touched?
No, not necessarily.
What does it mean then?
It just means that there wasn't any detail that was clear enough to be used to do a comparison to known exemplars.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Good afternoon.
And you did your examination of this particular item on what day?
The processing that I completed took place on May 27th, 2022.
And the item was received by the GBI on what day?
Our records indicate that it was received at the laboratory on May 23rd.
Now, how many days or I guess hours did you actually work on this particular item?
All of my analysis was completed in a single day. A typical super glue fuming run takes about a half an hour to 45 minutes to complete. Since my results were negative, there wasn't additional time spent to do imaging or photography. So the actual analysis from start to finish maybe took 2 hours total.
So the item was received by the GBI on May 23rd, 2022, correct?
Yes,
And it was received from the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office, is that correct?
yes,
And you said you did your examination on the 27th.
yes, sir.
Looks as though you completed your report on that same day.
Yes, I did.
And you were telling us that there can be various reasons why you have negative results.
Yes.
And in this case, you mentioned to us that sometimes you have to have at least 7. I know you used to call them points. What do you call them nowadays?
The terminology we use are minutia.
Minutia. Okay. It was easy when we call them points. So you had to have at least 7 minutia, correct?
Yes,
But sometimes you don't have 7,
right.
and that yields a negative result.
Yes.
Is that what happened here in this case?
It's possible with negative results. We don't photograph anything that's negative, so it would be hard to say for sure. Not having an exact memory of this specific case from over a year ago now, or about a year ago, as far as what the actual conditions of it were.
Okay. So could you mention also that it could be that during the super glue fuming that there's no development?
Yes.
And so given what you're telling us that you don't recall if that's why you had a negative result.
Right. We don't record the reason it's negative. If we had enough detail to render a positive result, all of that would be photographed. But in instances where we have a negative, it's simply recorded as being negative.
And as you mentioned, that there's sort of, I guess, 2 steps. I guess one is basically looking with your naked eye, or do you do it through a microscope?
We do have magnifying glass and lamps with magnifying glass available to use. Typically, no, not a microscope. But most of what we're looking at is done, yes, with the naked eye.
And I assume that in this case, when you look with your naked eye, you weren't able to make a determination.
Well, I did make a determination. The determination.
Super glue fuming.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Emmons just asked you about dumbbells. In this case, back in May of 2022, were you asked to examine a dumbbell?
No, I wasn't.
Were you asked to examine the item there in State Exhibit number 32?
Not to my recollection.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused?
Yes.
Queen,
Yes, Your Honor.
Quick with
Thank you.
witnesses.
call your next witness.
Your Honor, they call Kimberly Jewett.
They don't mess about, which I like. I respect that from both sides.
I do. My name is Kimberly, Kimberly, Jewett, Jewett.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Where do you work?
I work for the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, Division of Forensic Sciences, commonly referred to as the State Crime Lab,
Okay, and how long have you worked there?
for 13 years.
And what's your title there?
I'm a microanalyst for the trace evidence section.
And as a microanalyst, what are your duties?
I analyze evidence that is small in size, usually requiring the aid of a microscope to examine it. So things like hair, fiber, gunshot primer residue, things like that.
And I think you said how long you've worked there. How long have you actually been a microanalyst there?
For all 13 years.
And what kind of education do you have?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology with a minor in chemistry from the University of West Georgia. I've completed 2 courses at the McCrone Research Institute in Chicago, Illinois, one on applied polarized light microscopy, the other on human and animal hair. I completed a course at Hook College of Applied Sciences in Westmont, Illinois on hair analysis. I've completed a 12-month training program at GBI for hair analysis, a 6-week training program for fracture match analysis, and a 6-month training program for gunshot primer residue analysis.
Okay, and is that all the training that you've had to have in order to do this job?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, the processing of hair itself, how long have you done that?
I've done that for all 13 years, minus the 12 months of training.
Okay. Now, in the 13 years, how many cases of processing hair do you think you've worked?
Approximately 570.
Now, have you ever testified as an expert?
Yes,
How
I
many
have.
times?
50.
And Your Honor, at this time, we would tender her in as an expert in trace evidence and microanalysis.
Any objection? She will be so recognized.
Now, Ms. Jewett, did the GBI receive items for trace analysis in this case in April 2022?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Now, this case that we're talking about, is there a certain number that's assigned to this case?
There is.
What is that number?
If I can refer to my notes. 2019-1005039.
Okay. Now, when
Again,
you receive when the GBI receives the hair for trace analysis, what happens?
So when the evidence is first received into the lab, a unique crime laboratory case number will be placed on each new case that comes in. Each new case or item that comes in will have a unique item number also associated with it. So those items will have a barcode placed on the item so we can track it as it goes through the lab. The items will also be imaged as it comes in, and all submitting documentation will also be scanned into the case file.
Okay. And what items did trace analysis receive in this case?
We received hair identified as recovered from the hand of Shirley Merritt and the known head hair of Shirley Merritt.
And how were these items packaged?
They were both packaged inside of a brown paper bag that was sealed with red evidence tape, and an initial was across the seal. Inside that brown paper bag were 2 Ziploc plastic bags. One of these Ziploc plastic bags was labeled as hair from the hand of Shirley Merritt. It was zipped closed and had a label over the top. The other Ziploc plastic bag was labeled as the known head hair of Shirley Merritt. It was also zip closed with a label over the top.
When the items were received, did they appear to have been tampered with or damaged in any way?
No, they did not.
Okay. Now, what was requested of you to be done with these items?
It was requested that I analyze the hair from the hand of Shirley Merritt, see if any of those hairs were suitable for comparison, and if they were, to compare them to the known head hair of Shirley Merritt microscopically.
Okay. And so that comparison, can you describe that process?
Yes. First, I began by looking at the hair identified as from the hand of Shirley Merritt. I did this visually and with a stereo microscope. A stereo microscope is a low-powered microscope going up to about 64 times magnification that has a greater working distance underneath and lets us see more external features of what we're examining. In doing this, I mounted all of the hairs that were identified as from Shirley Merritt that we call questioned hairs onto a labeled slide. That slide, or slides in this case, multiple, were examined under a stereo microscope and a compound light microscope. A compound light microscope is a higher magnification microscope, normally going from 100 to 400 times magnification. With this, it also uses transmitted light. So we're able to see more internal features of the hairs. So with this stereo microscope and compound light microscope, I go through each questioned hair and try to classify them as I can. So whether they're suitable for comparison, we attempt to determine a body origin they could have come from and an ancestry they could have come from. At that point, since there were hairs suitable for comparison from the hands, I then mounted the known head hair of Shirley Merritt. Those were also mounted onto labeled slides, examined under the stereo microscope and compound light microscope, so I can get to know the features that exhibit within the known hair. Once all of those are mounted, I put the questioned hair on a comparison microscope and the known head hair on a comparison microscope. A comparison microscope is 2 compound light microscopes that are connected by an optical bridge with a triangular head on top. So with this, I can put the slide of the questioned hair on one side, the known hair on the other, and I can see them in one field of view at one time. So each question here that's suitable for comparison will be compared to the known hair standard of at least 25 hairs from root to tip. So each question here is compared separately to the known. After that, I can draw a conclusion as to if they're consistent or inconsistent in microscopic characteristics.
Okay, so there's, to kind of break that down, there's multiple steps then.
Yes,
So the first step is to take the hair that was from the hand.
yes.
Okay, and when you have that hair, you're looking at that hair to determine whether or not it's suitable for comparison.
Correct.
Okay, how many hairs did you have to work with?
The total number of hairs in this case were 25 hairs.
Okay, and of the 25 hair, well, actually, what would make a hair suitable for comparison?
It has to exhibit enough characteristics or features that a comparison can be known. So things like pigment that naturally exists in a hair should be present. Pigment is a granule that gives the hair its color, and that can change throughout the hair. So what the color is, does that color change? Also, do those granules, how do they distribute within the hair? Are they evenly distributed all the way through? Are they clumped together? Does that change throughout the hair? Things like that. So we get to know a lot just from the pigment. But other characteristics such as that, we have to have enough characteristics and features to be able to do a comparison.
Okay. Now, of the 25 hairs that you had, how many were suitable for a comparison?
8 of them.
All right. So the first step is determine how many are suitable,
Correct.
right? And then the second step is to look at the known hair. Is that right?
After determining if they're suitable for comparison, then we can look at the known hair and get familiar with the known hair.
Okay. And you did that here.
I did, yes.
Now, of the 8 hairs that were suitable for comparison, what did you find?
In examining all of the hairs, I determined that there were hairs unsuitable for comparison and 8 hairs characteristic of European ancestry and characteristic of head hair that were suitable for comparison. Those 8 hairs compared to the known hair of Shirley Merritt were consistent in microscopic characteristics.
Okay. Now, I think you said what the factors were as far as what would make hairs unsuitable. Well, okay, so 8 hairs, of the 8 hairs, 8, they were all a match then?
They were all microscopically consistent to the known head hair. Yes.
Okay. Now, of the remaining hairs that were unsuitable, what were some of the factors that you saw in this case that didn't allow you to proceed?
All of the hairs that I noted were white in color, and by white, it means that it lacked pigment. So again, that's something we get a lot of information from is the pigment, what gives it its color. So since there wasn't any of that pigment, I wasn't able to do a comparison.
Now, after you finished this process, was there a, did you prepare a report?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what is the date of your report?
The date is 5/18/2022.
Okay. And the findings on your report are the same that you just went through here?
They are.
Now, after you did the micro analysis on the hair, what do you normally do next?
Normally in a situation like this, I would be done because this is what we would consider not probative. So it's expected that you're going to find hair of an individual on that individual. We're not proving anything else. We already know she was there. A probative example would be if a subject's hair was found on a victim's clothes. Victim's hair is found on subject's clothes. You're showing that someone was in contact with each other that you didn't necessarily know before. In those situations, we normally go a step further after a consistent result and send a route for nuclear DNA analysis.
Okay. And so here, what did you do next?
In this case, it was specifically requested that we send routes for nuclear DNA analysis, even though it's not our normal policy. So I went ahead to do that step.
Can you just describe that process?
Yes, in doing that, I look at the roots for a hair. That's the portion that would be suitable for DNA or nuclear DNA if it's possible. In looking for the roots, we have to determine if it's either anagen, which is an actively growing hair and a hair that has to somewhat be forced out, or a catagen-telogen hair, which is a hair that just naturally sheds. But if it's catagen-telogen, it has to have follicular tissue or skin still attached to the catagen-telogen hair. So if it has one of those two things, an anagen root or a catagen-telogen root with follicular tissue, it's suitable for nuclear DNA analysis. So anything that was suitable, in this case, all of the hairs were looked at. They were imaged as to how they appeared. They were cut and each of them placed into their own individual vials. They were made into new item numbers and sent to forensic biology for nuclear DNA analysis.
And you did that here?
I did.
All right. After you sent the items to what's the department again?
The forensic biology section?
The biology section. After you sent the items to the biology section, did you do anything else on this case?
I did not. That was the end of my examination.
I have no further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, let's see here. I got a question for you. You mentioned that the case number is 2019-1005039, correct?
Correct.
And however, you just mentioned that the case was taken in on 4/28 of 2022.
The items that I received were taken in on 4/28/2022.
Now tell us why it appears as though there's a 2019 case number on items in which you examined in 2022.
The 2019 case number would be from whenever the very first item was submitted, and then the request was, or excuse me, the case was made. I can't say why these items weren't submitted until 2022, only they were submitted on April 28th, 2022.
So was any examination done of these particular items in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, not at the lab. None of item 2 for us, which is the hairs from the hand or the known head hair of Shirley Merritt, was examined in any way until then.
Now, again, we've already mentioned that on April 28th, items were received from the DeKalb County District Attorney's
Had it
Office,
on
correct?
1.25
And on what-
speed, so now it's back to normal speed. Because we're trying to play catch up. But
What day did you do your examination, or was it over a course of days?
I began it on that same day, April 28th, 2022. The examination takes more than just a single day. So it didn't complete really until my report was released, which was May 18th, 2022.
And you were focused on the microanalysis of these pieces of hair.
From the hairs, correct.
Now hair, how many parts are there to hair?
So it depends on how you want to break it down. The structure of a hair, you could almost look at it like it's a pencil. So the pencil has paint on the outside, which is like the scales on your hair. The wooden part of a pencil would be like the main part or the cortex of a hair. And then the lead down the center would be like a medulla that we have at the center of your hair. A medulla is an air sac that runs down the center. It can be present or not in human hair. It can be translucent, which is see-through, or opaque, so you can't see through it. And then with animal hairs and things like that, it tends to be more structured. And then you have the tip of your pencil is like the very tip of your hair. And then the eraser part of the pencil is like the root of your hair. So that's the overall structure.
Unsuitable. Why were they unsuitable?
They were unsuitable because they didn't have any pigment in them.
I don't know where we were, but it's roughly around here. It's about 20 minutes left, half an hour left. Fuck me. It just means that the stream is finished, but because we will be
Should be present. Pigment is a granule that gives the hair its color, and that can change throughout the hair. So what the color is, does that color change? Also, do those granules, how do they distribute within the hair? Are they evenly distributed all the way through? Are they clumped together? Does that change throughout the hair? Things like that. So we get to know a lot just from the pigment. But other characteristics such as that, we have to have enough characteristics and features to be able to do a comparison.
Okay. Now, of the 25 hairs that you had, how many were suitable for a comparison?
8 of them.
All right. So the first step is determine how many are suitable,
Correct.
right? And then the second step is to look at the known hair. Is that right?
After determining if they're suitable for comparison, then we can look at the known hair and get familiar with the known hair.
Okay. And you did that here.
I did, yes.
Now, of the 8 hairs that were suitable for comparison, what did you find?
In examining all of the hairs, I determined that there were hairs unsuitable for comparison and 8 hairs characteristic of European ancestry and characteristic of head hair that were suitable for comparison. Those 8 hairs compared to the known hair of Shirley Merritt were consistent in microscopic characteristics.
Okay. Now, I think you said what the factors were as far as what would make hairs unsuitable. Well, okay, so 8 hairs, of the 8 hairs, 8, they were all a match then?
They were all microscopically consistent to the known head hair, yes.
Okay. Now, of the remaining hairs that were unsuitable, what were some of the factors that you saw in this case that didn't allow you to proceed?
All of the hairs that I noted were white in color, and by white, it means that it lacked pigment. So again, that's something we get a lot of information from is the pigment, what gives it its color. So since there wasn't any of that pigment, I wasn't able to do a comparison.
Now, after you finished this process, was there did you prepare a report?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what is the date of your report?
The date is 5/18/2022.
Okay, and the findings on your report are the same that you just went through here?
They are.
Now, after you did the micro analysis on the hair, what do you normally do next?
Normally in a situation like this, I would be done because this is what we would consider not probative. So it's expected that you're going to find hair of an individual on that individual. We're not proving anything else. We already know she was there. A probative example would be if a subject's hair was found on a victim's clothes. Victim's hair is found on subject's clothes. You're showing that someone was in contact with each other that you didn't necessarily know before. In those situations, we normally go a step further after a consistent result and send a route for nuclear DNA analysis.
Okay. And so here, what did you do next?
In this case, it was specifically requested that we send routes for nuclear DNA analysis, even though it's not our normal policy. So I went ahead to do that step.
Can you just describe that process?
Yes, in doing that, I look at the roots for a hair. That's the portion that would be suitable for DNA or nuclear DNA if it's possible. In looking for the roots, we have to determine if it's either anagen, which is an actively growing hair and a hair that has to somewhat be forced out, or a catagen-telogen hair, which is a hair that just naturally sheds. But if it's catagen-telogen, it has to have follicular tissue or skin still attached to the catagen-telogen hair. So if it has one of those two things, an anagen root or a catagen-telogen root with follicular tissue, it's suitable for nuclear DNA analysis. So anything that was suitable, in this case, all of the hairs were looked at. They were imaged as to how they appeared. They were cut and each of them placed into their own individual vials. They were made into new item numbers and sent to forensic biology for nuclear DNA analysis.
And you did that here?
I did.
All right. After you sent the items to what's the department again?
The forensic biology section?
The biology section. After you sent the items to the biology section, did you do anything else on this case?
I did not. That was the end of my examination.
I have no further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Wow.
We've lost a little bit.
Good afternoon.
Now, let's see here. I got a question for you. You mentioned that the case number is 2019-1005039, correct?
Correct.
And however, you just mentioned that the case was taken in on 4/28 of 2022.
The items that I received were taken in on 4/28/2022.
Now tell us why it appears as though there's a 2019 case number on items in which you examined in 2022.
The 2019 case number would be from whenever the very first item was submitted, and then the case was made. I can't say why these items weren't submitted until 2022, only they were submitted on April 28th, 2022.
So was any examination done of these particular items in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, not at the lab. None of item 2 for us, which is the hairs from the hand or the known head hair of Shirley Merritt, was examined in any way until then.
Now, again, we've already mentioned that on April 28th, the items were received from the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office, correct?
Correct.
And on what day did you do your examination, or was it over a course of days?
I began it on that same day, April 28th, 2022. And the examination takes more than just a single day. So it didn't complete really until my report was released, which was May 18th, 2022.
And you were focused on the microanalysis of these pieces of hair.
From the hairs, correct.
Now hair, how many parts are there to hair?
So it depends on how you want to break it down. The structure of a hair, you could almost look at it like it's a pencil. So the pencil has paint on the outside, which is like the scales on your hair.
It's not copper.
Wooden part of a
Works
pencil
for
would be
forward,
like
yeah.
the main part or the cortex of
Whatever
a
they're
hair.
called.
And then the lead down the center would be like a medulla that we have at the center of your hair. A medulla is an air sac that runs down the center. It can be present or not in human hair. It can be translucent, which is see-through, or opaque, so you can't see through it. And then with animal hairs and things like that, it tends to be more structured. And then you have the tip of your pencil is like the very tip of your hair. And then the eraser part of the pencil is like the root of your hair. So that's the overall structure of a hair.
And when you were looking at those 8 that were suitable for comparison, what part of the hair were you looking at?
I'm looking at all of it from root to tip if the root is present. Some of these in this case did not have a root. So from the very top of it all the way down to the tip, we compare all of it all the way through.
Now with the other ones that were unsuitable, why were they unsuitable?
They were unsuitable because they didn't have any pigment in them. So pigment, again, is what gives the hair its color. That pigment exists in the cortex part I was talking about, or the wooden part of your pencil. So without any of that pigment that takes up so much of the middle cortex part of it, there's just not enough to really compare.
So comparing the eraser and the point's not good enough.
No, we actually have to have it consistent from root to tip, so all the features in each question hair fall within the range of the known that's exhibited.
And you mentioned that 8 were suitable and the unknown did match the known.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The 8 which were suitable, you did compare those, correct?
The 8 that were suitable were compared to the known hair of Shirley Merritt, yes.
And consistent.
They were consistent.
Now, a second step you did, which is not, sounds like it's not what you always do,
Correct,
is basically you look to see what was suitable to forward on biology.
correct.
And how many hairs were suitable for biology?
There were 18 hair roots that were suitable for biology.
Okay. Now, you're talking about the roots. So here we go, talking about just the eraser, correct?
Yes, for forensic biology to do their analysis, they only need the root portion.
And why is that?
That's the only part that you're actually going to get any type of nuclear DNA off of it. The rest of the portion, no matter how many studies have been done, that's not really possible. There's another type of DNA technique that can potentially test that, and it's called mitochondrial DNA. It is not specific to an individual. It is passed from mother to child in an exact replica, and it's not something that we do at GBI. It's something that would have to go for FBI to do, and the FBI does not accept all of the cases that we send in. Something like that, there's a microscopical comparison that says it's consistent with this person, and having so many things from DNA, nuclear DNA analysis, I don't think they would actually accept this. Also, if we send something for mitochondrial DNA, it is destructive to the hair and nothing can be done with it after that point.
Okay. So we went down that road and let's get back where we were.
Okay,
You tell us about the root, and the root goes on to biology, correct?
correct.
And they do DNA testing on it.
They do.
And is that anything you're involved in?
No, once I cut the roots and send it, I have no further interaction with the case.
And in this particular matter, it appears though after, I guess, was it June 1st, which you were last involved in this case?
Yes, my last report was June 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Just real briefly, Judge. Ms. Stewart, of all the micro analysis of hair that you've done, have you ever had a hair sample from a decedent's hand that belonged to somebody who wasn't the decedent?
In my experience, no. The cases I've worked where hair from the hand of a victim has always been consistent microscopically to the victim's known hair.
I know for the question.
Anything further, this witness? May the witness be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Mr. Queen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Alexandra Jason.
About 20 minutes left.
Thank you. I do. Yes, my name is Alexandra Jason, Alexandra, and Jason is Jasin.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Where do you work?
I work at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or known as the GBI, in the Division of Forensic Science in the biology department.
Okay. How long have you worked there?
3 years.
And what's your title there?
I'm a forensic DNA analyst.
What does that mean?
I receive evidence from state and local agencies and do DNA analysis on them.
Okay. And I think I asked, but how long have you worked there?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. Now, what type of education do you have?
I got my bachelor's in forensic biochemistry in 2019 from Northern Michigan University.
Okay. And in order to become or to work in the forensic biology department, what kind of training do you have?
I underwent an extensive training that included oral, written, and practical examinations, as well as a supervised casework period.
Okay. And how many cases of DNA typing have you worked?
Around 100.
And have you ever testified as an expert?
I have.
Okay. And approximately how many times?
10.
Your Honor, at this time, we would tender in Ms. Jason as an expert in the field of forensic biology and DNA.
Any objection? She will be so recognized.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Jason, what is DNA?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the blueprint that makes us who we are. We get half of it from our mom, half of it from our dad, and it's unique to each individual with the exception of identical siblings.
And how, like, when you perform testing on DNA and to get DNA, how do you do that?
So we start with the extraction process, which is where we take a portion of the sample and using chemicals are able to isolate the DNA molecule from the rest of the cellular components. From there, we move on to the quantification process, which is where we determine how much DNA was extracted. From there, we make millions and millions of copies of specific sections of the DNA, which is called amplification. From there, we use computers and instruments in order to separate and detect those segments of DNA to make a graph, which we call the DNA profile. And from there, I compare to any known individuals from the case. I write my report and come to testify.
Okay. Now, as it relates to this case, I think we've been through this already, but is there a certain case number that's assigned to each case?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was the case number for this case 2019-1005039?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as it relates to that case number and any request for DNA, what were you asked to do?
I was asked to do the data analysis for hair samples and for contact swabs on a dumbbell.
A dumbbell.
Dumbbell, yep.
Let's talk about dumbbell first. What contact swabbing? What is that?
So contact DNA is just when you touch something, you typically leave skin cells behind. So we can swab that area that we suspect has been touched to see if we can get a profile from it.
Okay. What items did the GBI have at this time?
Just in relation to this case, I believe we had the hairs and we had the dumbbell.
Okay. Do you know who submitted those items?
No, but I can look at the chain of custody to find out.
Can you? Yeah.
May I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Thank you.
We received the dumbbell from the DeKalb County District Attorney,
And what date did you get the dumbbell?
May 26th.
Okay. Now, when the dumbbell was received by the GBI, what was done in order to do any DNA testing on it?
A swab was taken. It was a swab, what we call a wet swab and a dry swab, was taken of the handle of the dumbbell.
Okay. So what, like a piece of cotton was?
Yeah, typically it looks like a Q-tip, a one-sided Q-tip.
Okay. And so it was swabbed.
Correct.
And is the process that you described earlier, as far as DNA typing, the same that you would do on the contact
Yes.
DNA? Okay. Now, did you do anything with the swab on the dumbbell?
No, once it's swabbed and then it's tested, so
Right.
starts the extraction, we just put it back in the envelope and it's returned to the agency.
Was it tested?
Yes.
Okay. What were the results of the testing on the swab from the dumbbell?
It was insufficient. So there was DNA, but there was not enough to move forward to the amplification process.
Okay.
This is made up trial
Insufficient.
all over.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It just
What does
means
that
that we detected that there was DNA present, but we need a certain amount in order to move forward to amplification.
Okay. So there was DNA there, just not enough to create a profile.
Correct.
All right. Now,
And maybe caught
what type
as
of
well.
what type of material would you be most likely to get a good DNA sample off of? Or yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to contact DNA, it's best when there's a sample or an item that has a lot of friction with it. So the more rigid it is, if it's a cloth-like material, so that you could have absorption, are the best items or the best materials to have.
What about how often an item has been used?
Yep, how often item's been used, how often it's cleaned or washed, how recently it's been cleaned or washed, and different environmental factors. Is it left outside? Is it protected? Things like that.
Okay. And so here there was an insufficient amount of DNA to go through to go through further testing. Was there anything sent to you to compare it against anyways?
Yes, we had a known from Shirley Merritt and a known from Richard Merritt.
Now that result, the insufficient amount of DNA, do you always receive a full profile?
No.
Okay. How often do you not get one?
It's hard to say. We don't really keep statistics of a percentage of how often, but we do typically not like to test contact DNA because we know the likelihood of getting one is still pretty low.
Okay. So it's common. Is it common to have gotten this kind of result then?
Yes.
The fact that there was an insufficient amount of DNA, does that mean that the item had never been touched?
No, because we did get some DNA. The instrument still detected that there was DNA there, just not enough for us to move forward.
Okay. So we can say that it was used.
Yes.
Now, the hairs themselves, what were you asked to do with any hair?
The hairs also went through the DNA analysis process.
And what were you asked to test? What items?
We had 18 hairs that were submitted for DNA, and so they all went through the DNA process.
And did you have items to compare any DNA profile that you received from the hair?
Yes, we had the knowns from Shirley Merritt and Richard Merritt.
And the same process that was done with the dumbbell to create a profile, tested against that profile, was that done with the hair as well?
Yes.
And were the hair roots tested?
Yes, the hair roots were tested and they were compared if they moved forward to get a profile.
Okay. Now, of the hair roots that were tested, did you get any profiles?
Yes.
Okay. What were the results of your testing?
Out of the 18 hairs, 11 of them we got a profile from, and
Motherfuckers.
one was insufficient for DNA, so like the dumbbell, it didn't move forward to amplification, and one was absent for any DNA.
Okay, let's talk about the 11 roots that that had a profile. Can you talk about those?
Yes, so out of those 8 of them had a full profile that I matched to Shirley Merritt, and then 3 of them had partial profiles that I matched to Shirley Merritt.
The 5 where DNA was obtained, but you had a limited data. What does that mean?
Yes, so those were inconclusive, or what we call inconclusive. We got DNA profiles or partial profiles possibly from them, but I couldn't make any conclusions because the amount of DNA there or the profile was still so small.
And I think you said that there was one route that had an insufficient amount of DNA to move forward,
Correct.
and that's like the dumbbell.
Yes.
Right. And then one had an absence of DNA. What does that mean?
There's just no DNA detected from the hair being extracted.
Does that mean that it didn't come from someone's head? What does that mean?
It could mean a different amount of things. It could have just been a bad hair root. Typically, we don't like contact DNA. We don't typically like doing hair because it doesn't give you a lot of DNA. We're only testing, it's not like you're getting a clump of hair that we're testing. It's one single root, and there's just not a lot of DNA held within the root of that hair.
After the hair has been processed, is there anything left?
No, when it comes to hair analysis, we consume the entire hair.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Like it.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
And you did this process in April of 2022?
Correct.
Now, you were telling us that over time, DNA deteriorates. It can deteriorate, correct?
It can deteriorate over time, yes.
Why and how?
Different factors, again, kind of like with evidence, when it comes to environmental factors, say it's left out in the sun for long periods of time, UV destroys DNA. Also, like cleaning things, bleach, stuff like that can also destroy DNA.
Now, in this case, one of the things you examined was a dumbbell, correct?
Correct.
And this dumbbell, prior to you doing testing on it in April of 2022, do you have any idea where it was stored, how it was stored, or who it was stored by?
The dumbbell, when it was received by the GBI, was properly sealed and packaged. And from that point, it was kept in a few different storage locations within the GBI, including in the biology lab.
That's when it was in your possession, GBI possession. What
Correct.
about before that? Any idea how it was stored or packaged before that?
No, I can't speak to how the dumbbell was packaged or anything like that before it got to the lab.
Now, you mentioned contact DNA, and of course, contact, that's like me touching this podium, correct?
Correct.
What about blood? Blood on that dumbbell?
There was blood on the dumbbell, yes.
And was it tested?
The blood was tested for serology, but it was not DNA tested.
Okay. Any idea why?
It wasn't requested.
Wow.
Now,
Fuck
contact, blood, where does sweat fall into this?
Well, sweat kind of helps the skin cells that rub off when we touch things through friction to help kind of just stick and absorb to whatever it touches.
Now, is there any idea if there may have been some sweat on the dumbbell?
We don't test for that.
Okay. And why is that?
I honestly don't even know how we would test for sweat. Sweat is just the oils that come from your hand and precipitation. It's not necessarily, it's just not something we test for.
Okay. And you mentioned to us also you tested the hairs.
Yes.
And actually, in both cases, you had knowns from Richard Merritt and Shirley Merritt, correct?
Correct.
And as to the hairs, you did find some that were consistent with the DNA profile of Ms. Shirley Merritt.
Correct.
And I guess, just to be clear, in both cases, regarding the dumbbell, regarding the hairs, you found no DNA consistent with Richard Merritt.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
Just briefly, Judge. The fact that you didn't find a profile matching Mr. Merritt, does that mean that he didn't touch it?
No, there was DNA there, so someone touched it.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Any further questions, this witness?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, we'd ask to resume tomorrow or next week to see this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we made some really good progress today. I'm going to ask you all to please be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll continue on with the testimony. If you'll meet the deputy out in front of 7A as you did when you came back from lunch. The refrigerator and the microwave and anything that's in the jury room is for your use during the course of the trial. So if you want to bring in snacks or anything like that, feel free to do so. I know it gets a little difficult in the afternoons to stay awake and pay attention, but it is very important that you pay close attention to the evidence. You're not going to have a transcript or anything of the testimony back when you begin your deliberations. So if anyone needs a break, and I try to keep an eye out for anyone dozing off, but if I miss you and you need a break, just please raise your hand and let me know, okay? And we'll take as many breaks as we need to, because I want to make sure that you're paying close attention to the evidence. Please remember the instruction not to talk about the case or allow anyone
Cheers,
to
mate.
talk to you about the
Cheers,
case.
Lefty.
All right? Have a nice evening,
Sorry,
and
I
I'll see you all
wasn't paying attention.
tomorrow. Thank you.
So it's 9 o'clock tomorrow. So 9 o'clock, Giovanna, if you're still here. Spider Girl, you're probably sleeping. Giovanna, you're probably not here. But thanks everyone for being here today. It was weird. DNA, blood tested for DNA. No, it wasn't requested. It's like Alec Murdoch 2.0.
Anything we need to address before we recess?
All right, Your Honor.
All right, see you all at 9.
So I presume that means 9 Eastern.
The exhibits that have been admitted, if you all will put them all together, we can lock them up.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I've had a crap day today in terms of everything going wrong. Spider Girl, thanks for spending most of the day with me. Again, I know you're sleeping, but if you do watch this again, thank you very much for your patience. Yeah, I think it's interesting to try. I've not seen anything yet of any value, so it's gonna be interesting to see what they got him on, really. Yeah, I mean, it's a dark case if he did do it. Geez, sticking a knife through your mother's face, So we'll have to see. But I think the morning session was out, well, just crap with the ex-wife. She brought nothing. Maybe that's why they put her on first. Get out of the way. She was worthless. That's what Spider Girl said earlier on. Let's get the evidence, actually, rather than obviously a woman scorned, wanting this person in prison. Complete waste of time. So yeah, that's where we're at. So it'll be 9 a.m. tomorrow, if in Eastern time, if Giovanna's still here. But if not, join whenever. Thank you, Lefty. Thank you, Gio, for joining. Now, and you clarified that you didn't get notifications about me going live, but I've been live every day nearly. And Spider Girl, as always, thank you to you. Mad World's probably want to watch this on repeat, so cheers for watching Mad World. Hopefully Leah watches again. Hopefully we see Leah tomorrow. It'd be lovely to have her back. And I know there's a few people bored of trials in there, like Rosie and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, so we will get the gang back one day, just not quite yet. And hopefully we get a couple more followers. It'd be nice to gather a few more. I've messaged a few people like Beth, who I think got, maybe she just didn't enjoy our stream, which is fair. It's not for everyone. and a lot of people like hundreds of thousands of people in because they want to see everyone's opinions and chat and stuff. And we obviously don't have that. So with that, Rumble, thank you. I feel so sorry for Rumble because the Rumble people have been so dedicated. We've had, as I say, 50, 60, 70, 80 odd people at times, but today obviously we didn't because it kept crashing. And every time it crashed, I had to start again. And they got kicked off in Rumble every time, which is a pain. They didn't on YouTube, but they did on Rumble. So I don't know. I'll have to try and fix that somehow. Hopefully everything's going to work out all right now. Oh, just get this just get because I'm lagging a lot, and I just want to check if it's maybe you just didn't enjoy our stream, which is fair. It's not for everyone, and a lot of people like hundreds of thousands of people in because they want to see everyone's opinions and chat and stuff. And we obviously don't have that, so. With that, Rumble, thank you. I feel so sorry for Rumble because the Rumble people have been so dedicated. That's good. To me, it looks like I'm freezing a lot, but it doesn't seem to come across like that. So, whoever's left in here, thank you very much. It's probably Spider Girl sleeping and left the phone on. Fair play to her. So with that. Thank you to you on YouTube, as I say, especially Lefty, Geo, and Spider Girl for chatting today. As I say, hopefully we get more people here and Rumble. You're a great gang on Rumble. Sorry about today. Hopefully get it fixed for tomorrow, and we get a load of you back. And thank you for the follower on YouTube and actually on Rumble. It's odd because two people I tweeted yesterday, and also then I must have forgot their names or something because two people unfollowed me straight away on YouTube. Just strange. It was really strange. Within a couple of minutes of each other, they unfollowed me. But someone's followed me back today. So appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to close down. Got some prepping to do for Lady Law and Ms. Morgan for tomorrow night. And got some stuff to do set up for tomorrow now. So well, just so you know, Crime Spies is just she's just live. So if you're watching this live and you fancy watch this on Rumble, Crime Spies is on Rumble. So with that, thank you, people. I'm going to press end broadcast, and with that, thank you very much. See you tomorrow.